Hey, shalom, everybody. Shalom. Welcome to the Way Remnant. I am Jeff Brandon.
And I'm Miranda Brandon.
Guys, we are live tonight on a Wednesday night, and we have not one, but two people back in the green room. We've got Janice Baca and Brian Scott Williams. Guys, I am so excited to have them on tonight. We're going to be talking about the Cochin Hebrew New Testament manuscripts. And guys, we're going to be talking about evidence that changes everything.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited about this tonight, guys. You have no idea. We talked with them a couple months ago, maybe something like that, a month and a half ago, about doing this very program, and we have been just waiting, geeky, salivating out, ready to have them come on. And I'm looking in the green room. They're fighting over the remnants of the brisket right now. I think they're just about done. You got a little bit right there, Brian. There we go. A
You
little bit right
mentioned
there.
brisket. Now you're gonna have to cook one.
I have to cook one. Yeah, there we go. That's good stuff. But guys, look, we're not gonna mess around tonight. We're gonna bring them on right now, guys. Look, I'm so excited to bring on our guests, Janice Baca and Brian Scott Williams. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Welcome back to the Way Remnant, guys. Look, I am so excited to have you on. If you know what, this may be the first time someone's ever heard of you guys. If you could, whoever wants to go first, maybe ladies first, give a little overview of who each of you are, and then we'll get going here tonight. Does that sound good?
Sure, absolutely. So I am a scholar of the Hebrew Bible. Been studying the Hebrew language, the biblical Hebrew language for, 8-10 years, something like that. And so Hebrew grammarian and translating what we coined the term Cochin Hebrew New Testament. It's the Cambridge, because these are Cambridge manuscripts they're in the library at Cambridge University in the UK. And so we found some pretty important signs that we'll be discussing with you guys today. And so that's my story. And hey, Brian, who are you and where are you with?
Well, my name's Brian Scott Williams. And hey, Jeff, you mentioned fighting over some brisket.
I did.
Well, that's true, but I also came for some other kind of fighting. I got my glove on.
Oh,
and if you
look at that.
Carefully, there's a lion right there.
There's a lion.
There's a
No,
lion.
we got a lion.
The reason,
One lion.
Listen, the reason why I got these gloves on is because I want to duke it out with the conventional thinking of the Greek supremacy. That's kind of why we're driving to do this, because we know that there's so much evidence behind the text showing that it's coming from an original Hebrew source. So I'm here and I'm ready to fight. With that being said, my name is Brian Scott Williams, and I've been doing text criticism for more than 8 years, I think so. I've been teaching true biblical teaching for 6 years now. I started collecting manuscripts back in, I think it was probably 2012, 2013, and became a curator, got pulled into manuscript work, and me and Janice have been cranking away on manuscripts for quite a while now. And I have a history degree, and I love the Bible. I love anything to do with the Bible. Archaeology and manuscripts and text criticism is my passion. And so, yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, we've got two polls tonight, guys. We've not tried this on, so this if there's some technical difficulty, we apologize with it. But we're going to do our first poll tonight, and then here a little bit we'll do another one. But first poll tonight, guys. Do you think the Cochin Hebrew is the closest we have to the original manuscript? So we would love to hear what you guys have to say. You can type a 1 in the comment for yes, a 2 for a no, and a 3 for maybe. There we go. Love to see what your thoughts are on all that fun stuff, and we'll kind of get into this. So tonight, guys, we're going to be talking about the Cochin Hebrew New Testament manuscripts. Janice, what do we mean by the Cochin Hebrew New Testament manuscripts? What do we think about that?
So for many years, we have known that has been plenty of evidence that the New Testament was primarily written in Hebrew, because that was their language of this first century. And so because of that, we've received what? The Greek And it's like, so whether or not they spoke Greek is irrelevant. They would not have written in Greek. They would have written in Hebrew. So we're talking about these men who are going to be writing letters. And you're telling me they're going to write it in a language that is not their holy personal language, that the Torah is written in Hebrew primarily. And so we've got the Hebrew, and we're going to read from Hebrew. We're going to speak Hebrew, but we don't want to write to each other in Hebrew. We're going to write it in Greek. That doesn't make sense. So there's been for many generations a search for these manuscripts, but we're looking for the evidence of the writing. So the whole point of everything that we're doing is there are a number of New Testament Hebrew manuscripts, but the goal is to find one that has not been translated, or at least primarily not translated. We wanted to have the Hebrew markers of the first century, and we know what that looks like. And so we will go into that and what some of that looks like, because we want to see something that hasn't gone through 2 and 3 translations, because you lose so much of those markers once it's gone through just one translation.
Right.
So this is something that it has been discovered a long time ago in the 1800s in Cochin, India, these manuscripts. However, it's been long ignored, or there's been papers written about them, but they're stored in the universities, or some are actually on like the the scholar websites and so forth. But it just hasn't really gone out to the public much, and that's where Project Truth Ministries is coming into play. And that we have 2 passions: the Hebrew manuscripts, the Gospels, the whole New Testament, as well as Mount Sinai. Those are our 2 big passions. And Brian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just piggyback on some of the stuff that you're saying, Janice. You know, there's been a large collection of New Testament Hebrew manuscripts found. There's a long list. I think I saw that there's probably in the 20s different of families of manuscripts. So that would be, you find one that's for one, but in that one is the entire New Testament. So there's a lot of those around the world all found. I personally have looked at 3 Hebrews written in Hebrew. I've looked at at least 6 Johns, maybe 6 Jameses, but they're all from different places around the world. And we'll get into Dr. Roy Blizzard a little bit later, but he theorized that in the future, when they start digitizing manuscripts, that people would find these things and they would start to study them, and they would become really mind blown what they're looking for. But with that being said, Janice and I, we were part of a project, and we got access to most, if not all, of the manuscripts that had been found to date where we were working. And it was a very big collection. And me and Janice kind of combed through what we could. And we arrived on the Cochin being like no other, had the most markers at the time, the most, we'll get into some of those things that we found that points to it being coming from an original Hebrew source, and doesn't have any influences and inserts and evidence of Greek and all this stuff. So that's why we put all of our efforts on the Cochin, and that's why we're leading this out to the people, because hey, this could make the most impact. This could shake up the scholarly world the most. Like, this is like, we found a diamond here, and we want the rest of the world to see it.
Good. Well, I'm excited about that. So right now, the audience is about 67%. They think that the Cochin is the closest that we have to the original manuscripts. We have 0 people that are saying no. That's nice. And then we have 33. I think it's 33% down there that says maybe. So good stuff like that. Good. I'll pull that if it'll let me. I'll pull that poll back up, and we'll vote again at the end of this conversation. So I'm excited to see where that comes out. Yeah. And then we do have another poll tonight, guys. For you guys that have ever been with us when we've had Brian Scott Williams on any program, how many lions will Brian mention tonight? 1, you can hit 1. 2, you can hit, that's 5. 3, there you go. The 7, and then 4 is to infinity and beyond. There we
And
go.
beyond.
So just having
I'll see
fun.
what I can do.
There you go, Brian. How many lines can you sneak in here tonight?
That
So
was
anyway,
beautiful.
that's just a fun one, guys. But hallelujah, guys! I am so excited to have you both here tonight in one place because you guys live way across the country from each other. One of you is in Texas, one's in North Carolina, and man, I love the fact that we have this digital age that we're in, and we're able to
That's right.
communicate like this. I can't even imagine how things like this would be able to happen in the past. So people would have to be flying everywhere. I mean, just all kinds of things. So thank God for what He's able to do through this tonight. But I'm gonna let you guys take it away. We're probably going to interrupt you and ask questions. I want to encourage the audience, guys. If you have questions, put question in all caps, and then make sure you end it with a question mark, and we'll catch it. And at the end of the program, we're going to be having a Q&A like that. So are you guys excited? You guys are okay for that, right? You don't mind answering?
Absolutely. I think
Yep,
it's wonderful.
sounds
Nice.
good.
Ask them some hard stuff. No softball questions.
Come on. I brought the gloves. Come on, bring it. Let's go. There's a lion on it.
Love it. And Brian,
So,
only
I
you
think
would
we
have a
do
clue
need to
what
make an
Brian-
announcement, though, Brian.
Oh,
Oh.
yes. We need
Yeah.
to share some good news.
We've
We
got
need to-
something big, you
some
guys.
hallelujah moments going
We've got
on.
a
wow.
hallelujah moment we want to start off with.
Okay.
So, Brian, why don't you start it off and I can finish it off too?
Oh, okay. So, let's see here. I'll start off with the first one in the order, and Janice, you bring in the back
Okay.
end. So we have been approached with starting the process of getting onto some major platforms out there that are going to take the Cochin's reach even further, and it is going to be very historic. I'll frame it
Wow.
like that.
So
Wow.
this is, we have at Project Truth Ministries, we do not believe in charging for God's word, right? And so we have done everything possible in our effort to make sure that it is out there free for God's people. So it's on academia.edu, it's on projecttruthministries.org. So guys, go get and download your copy. These are things that we have done the best of our ability to make sure that it goes out to you. Now, we are in the process of completing Matthew. A lot of Matthew has already been completed. And so it's going through right now some of the secondary review process, because we do a double review over our translation. Then there's going to be some things that's going to happen. Now, we know right now, just through academia.edu, we've reached over 220 nations around the world, but it's not over yet. Okay. And what I'm saying is that when Brian says this is historic,
Very
it's
historic.
about to be historic. Okay. So we would like you guys to keep watching for the announcements, because this is huge. And
Wow.
God's people truly will have this in their hands without any expense to them. And that's the way our Father wanted it.
Wow. I am
Hallelujah.
so excited. I can't wait for this full announcement. And guys, if you have not gone and seen the interlineary that you guys have made, go to projecttruthministries.org, and you guys can pull up the Revelation is complete, right? It's done.
Revelation is complete.
Mhm.
It's complete, and not only well, you guys describe it. I mean, I can't do it justice.
So-
Tell them what they're going to look at when they see that.
So what they're going to see is they're going to see an image. We've had the great blessing of Cambridge University, who has given me the wonderful blessing to share their images. They love their name getting out, but they have been such a huge blessing to me and Project Truth Ministries. And we Brian, are we going to mention that too, or are we just going to talk about just general terms?
Let's go ahead and throw out the endorsement.
Okay, so we are getting endorsements, right?
Mhm.
So
Ooh.
we are getting
We've started
endorsements of
getting
these
endorsements.
manuscripts, including Cambridge University.
Yeah. So
My
shout out to
goodness.
any
Oh,
scholars out
wow.
there. Any scholars out there that want to jump on this list that has begun to form of
Yeah.
scholars who want to endorse this translation and what we're doing. The invitation is yours.
The
Contact
invitation
us.
is yours.
Oh,
So
that's so cool.
what we're doing is we're taking the images and we're including the images and we're including the translation, the transcription, the Hebrew, and the translation. And we break it down word for word in an interlinear table so that you can see how it's pronounced and how the word is used and what part of speech it's used. And if there are idioms, we include that as well as a footnotes and all of that good information as well. So this is where it helps people to learn biblical Hebrew. Now, guys, there's a big difference between modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew, and I say this all the time. There's a grammatical shift that happened over time, and still does. Ancient Hebrew is not the same as First Temple, nor is the same as Second Temple, late Second Temple, or modern Hebrew. It's called, I call it Hebrews, not Hebrew. So people are learning late Second Temple, first century Hebrew through these translations and these documents that we are publishing out to God's people for free. So this is a big, we're a small team, but we're doing a lot of work. And I think it's just powerful that we have been able to coordinate this and come together. And we do translation and validation and all of this good stuff. And so you don't want to miss this. You want to study it. I think it's worthy to set it beside. In fact, it's better when you set it beside your Greek translation. Why? Because it stands out.
I love the fact that in your interlinear you have and Karen's right. Karen says the pronunciation is just for me. But if you guys want to go, you can go to the Project Truth Ministries, and there's the place where it's shared, the coaching. And guys, look, not only do you have most places when you like Charles, R.H. Charles, when he's going through like Shem Toes or something like that, he just translates. He doesn't really show you the text. He just like, this is what I think it is. And you guys actually show a snapshot from Cambridge, right? From the actual image. And then you put your translation in. Then you show a translation from the Greek, and you show a translation from the Aramaic. And so you can compare all three right there. No one does that.
Right. And that's why we did that, is because we're trying to change the game. We want people to get in the process of making these interlinears with everything in them so that you can actually do the studies yourself. You can walk through the material without needing a scholar beside you, without needing 10 books around you. You can actually learn it yourself and become a student right there on your own.
I love it. All right. Well, guys, look, let's buckle up. Let's go. Thank you for announcing that, man. I am so excited. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
We're living in history at this point in time. And I tell you this, God is doing miracles through this. He truly is. And he has really breathed upon this, this entire project. It hasn't been easy, but it has truly been a great blessing. And we are servants of God, and we're here to make sure that God's people get his word.
Absolutely. So, with that, can I just give a shout out to the Project Truth Ministries team?
Yes.
They have worked so hard, so diligent. Really appreciate all these guys. I just want to go through here. Shout out to Jonathan, Victor, Seth, and Stephen, Kyle, and Justin. I didn't want to throw their last names on there in case they didn't want their names out there, but they have been awesome. We love them very much.
That's right.
Couldn't have done it without them.
That's right. We couldn't have done it without them.
That is so exciting. That is so exciting. I feel honored that you guys have come on our program and you're sharing these things with the guys. We have a whole playlist of both of you guys just coming in and dropping bombshells, dropping amazing revelation, showing very unique differences. Brian, you mentioned something before the show started. You said you may be sharing some things that y'all haven't talked about, right?
Oh, yes. So like to mention, Janice and I have dropped a lot of bombshells.
Yeah.
And if your audience has been watching those bombshells, they will see that there's a case building for how amazing and incredible this manuscripts of the Cochin collection are. And if you haven't watched those, go back and watch those.
Yeah.
If you haven't subscribed to The Way Remnant, go subscribe.
That's
Do
right.
that, and then watch those episodes of Janice and I on
That's right.
The Way Remnant. But with that being said, yes, we like to bring new stuff to you, Jeff,
Yeah.
Miranda. We like to bring stuff you've never seen before. So we have put in our little presentation some things that have not been talked about publicly yet. So
Oh.
it's going to be pretty cool.
I should have wore a pocket protector and put tape on my glasses. I'm going to nerd out and geek out so bad tonight, guys. I tried to look professional, but it's not going to last. I'm just
It's
telling
just
you.
not going to last. But you know what makes it amazing, though, Jeff, is this is actually resolving the textual problems we
Yes.
had before, right?
Yeah.
This answers questions, not only just in questions in general, but it answers end of day questions.
Wow.
And it connects us. Some of these connect us all the way back to Deuteronomy. And I think we got some back to Genesis and so forth.
Yep.
We're talking about when you have the Hebrew, you're connecting to the Hebrew. We're finding these connections. And this is exactly what we should anticipate to see. And we see it. And it answers a lot of questions. And it is different. It is different than your Greek translation.
Yeah.
So
If you've spent time doing text criticism with the Greek, you already know that there are issues. Like a lot of people are like oblivious, like, oh, I didn't know there was textual problems. Yeah, they're textual problems.
Brother, don't you know we can correct the Greek and the Hebrew from the King James? I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm just
if it's good enough for Paul, right? The King
That's
James.
right. Yeah.
No, but yeah, so we can fix pretty much all these places that Janice and I like knew going into this. We were like, if the Cochin is legit, then we should go to this verse and it should solve our Greek problem. And lo and behold, boom, it does it. It does it like, I would say like 98% of the times it's fixing those problems.
Wow.
And so that's why this is.
And then beyond that, even when think about this, even beyond that, like, for example, the power of God singing that you don't really see as easily that when you're just studying the Tanakh, right? But then it's there in the Tanakh. But when you have the Cochin Hebrew New Testament, and then you say, wait a minute, and then you put together the studies from the Tanakh about the power of God singing. Now that's not a textual problem. That's a blessing that now just blossoms into this great flower. This is huge.
It emphasizes it, right?
It
Where you
does.
wouldn't normally see it. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so
it
cool.
does.
Right. I'm gonna bring up your presentation, Brian.
All right.
And we're gonna get ready to roll, guys.
All right.
Again, guys, if you have questions, put question in all caps, and we'll save them towards the end, and you guys will have a Q&A.
Yeah, just let them rip. All right. I want to start out with like a light warm up and then a warm up, because anything Hebraic, you have to have a pretty drawn out introduction. That's just how the Hebrew guys work. That goes way back to ancient times.
We're going to start off with genealogy. It's going to be like 6 hours. There we go. And then
nothing like that. Don't be afraid, people. Don't turn off because he said 6 hours. All right. So we need to get you just a little introduction, familiarity, that there is an abundant amount of information to suggest that the Gospels were originally written in Hebrew. And in fact, we have 9 early church fathers. And here are the list here: Papias, Irenaeus, Origen, Eusebius, Jerome, Epiphanius, Pentaenius, I always struggle with that guy, Cyril of Jerusalem, and Alexander of Clement of Alexandria. Ooh, tongue tie. Say what? There
That's
are
line
9?
number 2.
Well, guess what? There's actually more than that. If you keep going in history, you keep finding them later in history. And
wow.
I'm gonna share a couple of those with you. So I'm gonna read.
You mentioned Clement of Alexandria. He lived during Paul's time, didn't he?
Yeah, he overlapped. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Papias is pretty old too. He's right there overlapping with him as well.
Wow.
So, I mean, these guys were really close to the sources. And, Jerome even talks about how he got to see those manuscripts in person.
Wow.
And so these are no lightweight. And so if you start with the history, you'll see like, oh, that's matching the text. Let me go look the text. Once you start looking into the text, you'll see more, and we'll kind of reveal that. But I want to just reel off some more contemporary, some more modern scholars who have gone on to say this same thing because they're looking at the same text.
By the way,
Yes.
Brian, what kind of animal is that you have on the screen right there?
Oh,
See, that's number 2.
that's a big cat. Big cat. I think you call it a leon or something like that.
I
There we
think
go,
it
brother.
I don't think I've
is
ever
a
heard that
Leon.
before. But it says it's the righteous are as bold as lions.
That's
And
right, man.
so we're here being bold. Right?
That's right.
Amen.
So let me list these scholars. I'll go through them really fast. You got
Okay.
Dr. Roy Blizzard. He just passed away. Peace and love goes to their family. Truly a game changer, revolutionary in the 80s on promoting the idea that the text was originally written in Hebrew. If you haven't, go get his book. We're gonna pull from it a little bit.
Yeah, these 2 books.
I got mine here with me.
Yeah.
Jeff, where's yours? I know you got one.
Oh, I got one. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I didn't
It's,
know we were showing tonight. I'd have had it ready.
Yeah.
There we go.
Understanding the difficult words of Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an awesome book.
Really short and easy to read. And I'll just list these through. So you got Dr. David Flusser, Dr. Moshe Bar Asher, Dr. George Howard. George Howard is credited with doing Shem Tov's translation work. Dr. Harris Berkeland, Dr. William Sanford Lasser, Dr. Samuel Tobias Lax, Dr. Frank Cross. He was one of the top scholars for the Dead Sea Scrolls. Very important. Dr. Abby J.T. Malik. I know Janice is going to talk about a quote from him. Then we got Dr. Al Garza, Dr. Doug Hamp, and Dr. Nehemiah Gordon. So there is actually a lot more of those out there. And there's even more that know this information, believe that the original text is originally written in Hebrew, but they have not come out in public and stated those things. And so what we're doing is just the tip of the spear. We're just at the beginning of the movement of revealing what the text says, even in the Greek. The Greek gives itself away that it was originally written in Hebrew. And so we are mounting a movement. And
That's right.
we're encouraging everybody to join the movement, spread the word, spread the links, subscribe, do all that you can to wake people up. Because when you start doing that, you start looking at the text from a Hebraic mindset, Hebraic understanding, the understanding that the text has been translated to another language. Once you start doing that, it jumps out to you. You learn so much more. You go so much deeper in your understanding of what you're reading.
Wow.
All right, Janice, you want to take this quote for us?
Absolutely. So here, this is what it says. After a careful analysis of all the textual materials from the Judean desert, Milik concluded that the copper rolls in the documents from the Second Revolt prove beyond reasonable doubt that Mishnaic Hebrew was the normal language of the Judean population in the Roman period. So this is also out of Dr. Roy Blizzard's book. Now, basically, what we're looking for the late Second Temple Hebrew. And like I said, guys, there's a specific type of Hebrew we're looking for. Spelling change, grammar change. There's a grammatical shift that happens over time. And every time the Israelites were around a different group of people, that truly affects their language, right? And because it affects their language, you will see this in the writings and their speech and their spelling. Now, during the first century, they spoke both Hebrew and Aramaic. So when you have because they're very close languages, it's easy to learn Aramaic. Once you learn biblical Hebrew, biblical Aramaic comes like super duper easy. So it's easy to smash those two languages together, and they have Aramaic phrases in the midst of the Hebrew spelling changes that's affected by the Aramaic language. And so what we call that is Aramaisms. Okay. And so and then of course, when you have a subset of this, and it's called New Hebrew or Rabbinic Hebrew, and a subset of that Hebrew is found in the Mishnah. So we call that Mishnaic Hebrew. So this is what we're looking for that is untranslated, that represents the Mishnaic Hebrew or Rabbinic Hebrew in the first century writings. These are the things we've already got. The history is done. The history is solid. So once you have the solid history and that's done, now you look for the writing style and the grammar of the first century. And so this is what we're looking at. So we know this Mishnaic Hebrew is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can I do a little rant? Just a little rant. I know, Jeff, you like my rants.
I do.
So, so this is all right. Do I need to put the gloves on? I'm not gonna put the gloves on. So there are scholars out there that, mainstream. They're still holding on to the idea. Oh, the original text, the Gospels, they were all doing Greek, or Greek and Aramaic, and there's no Hebrew at all. And to that, I would answer, yeah. And then the Dead Sea Scrolls just smacked you upside the head. What are you going to do about that? The Dead Sea Scrolls just show that there was an abundance amount of study, writing, right, and speaking in Hebrew. I mean, they're written in Hebrew. And then also the archaeology. The archaeology just screams out first century was operating in Hebrew. This is a Hebrew culture. These are Hebrew people. And they're going to a synagogue reading Hebrew.
You still get that. You still get those scholars today, like you said. Look, I was brought up in the ministry, and everything was Greek supremacy. Hebrew was a dead language. No one spoke it anymore. It was completely dead. That is false. We can definitively say that is 100% false. If you're still saying that, please go back to school and read the new textbooks, because that is no longer what they're teaching.
Yeah, they're putting something in your mind to stop you from thinking. That's just a seed that they're planting, and unfortunately, some people can't get it out of their heads. But I want to go a little bit further.
Okay,
because I have a replica. Okay, talk about the rocks crying out.
Yeah.
Brian's got a little show and tell. He's always.
I'm gonna pull you up.
Okay, there we go. You see that?
Wow.
This is a replica. It's not the real thing. I can't fit the real thing in my apartment, but this is a replica in Israel, and this is the place of the trumpeting. It's Lakata Tekiah, and this sat on the temple. This sat at the southwest corner of the Temple Mount, and it was flipped over. So the Romans, when they destroyed it, you have this Hebrew block lettering. It was up there. And when they destroyed the temple, it fell over and fell flat. It was very large. This is not, I can't fit the whole thing, but this shows you they were using Hebrew. They were just speaking in Hebrew, and Hebrew was there. And the archaeology shows that. So
I like that. And,
not only that, I'm sorry.
Let me just bring this up. Karen C. even brings up the posting on the cross demonstrates that it was a common and used language at the time, that they posted it in Hebrew, in Aramaic, and I think was it Latin as well. Anyway, here we go. Good stuff.
So not only that, during the first century, there's also the writings that were found in Qumran, like, for example, the Greater Isaiah Scroll, right? So they did not just do a direct copy from the Isaiah Scroll. They updated the language. They updated the spelling. And so now you see all the additional, what we call Plane spelling. They have all of the Mater Lectiones, and those are letters Hebrew is a consonantal system. It's only consonants, though it has vowel sounds.
Right.
But some letters are placeholders for vowel sounds. So they added those letters for vowel sounds in the Greater Isaiah Scroll. So
Okay.
now we can see what the evidence looks like for that time. And so this gives us an even better idea, a better understanding of the writing of that day and how the writing style changed.
Wow.
So that's
That-
huge.
That is fascinating. And I think it's so interesting that you bring that up, because a lot of people, they misunderstand, because Hebrew is just written in what we typically see in the biblical text, the Leningrad Codex, the Aleppo Codex, and different things like that. We do see vowel pointings there, but that's because they're 900 AD plus. If you go back to the earlier writings of Hebrew, the vowel pointers aren't there. The nikud, those little dots and squibbles and marks are not there. They hadn't been developed yet. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have the vowels when they pronounced them. A lot
That's
of people say, "Oh, they didn't have vowels." Well, if they didn't have vowels, they couldn't pronounce it.
Right.
So yeah,
No, there
I
were
don't thi-
vowel sounds, just no vowel letters.
Right. I don't think there's a language on the planet. Maybe Braille. I think maybe Braille is the only one that doesn't have vowels. I would go as bold to say that.
All right.
Yeah.
Very
All
good.
right.
Okay, so let's keep going. I like this.
All right. So let's do our warm up. This is a good, we did our light warm up. Now we're going to do a stronger warm up. By the way, look in the right corner. You can see something cool there.
Uh-oh, that's 3.
All right. So these are okay, if you don't know this, go look at the text. These should be well known, especially for your text criticism people out there. I know we have a smart audience in the Way Remnant group, so you're just going to be like, yes, 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 yes. All right. So Yeshua, Jesus, he spoke and taught the Torah, which was written in Hebrew. And he did this as early as 12 years old. So we know that he was at the temple when he was 12 and he was teaching. So he would have been speaking Hebrew. Yeshua quotes directly from the Torah and reads from the Isaiah scroll, which would have been written in
Hebrew. There you go. Now, hang on. I want to give some pushback here. Let's give some pushback.
Yeah,
for my education, I was taught that he was reading out of the Septuagint. What do you think about that?
I will tell you the Emmanuel Tov response.
Okay.
If you will. I don't know anybody out there who's familiar with Dr. Emmanuel Tov. Dr. Emmanuel Tov literally wrote the book on text criticism.
Yeah.
He is the guy. And he's in Jerusalem, I believe, Hebrew University. If you haven't watched his stuff, go watch his stuff. But in the actual book called Text Criticism, he talks about the Septuagint is not the original source. That is a manuscript made into Greek, and that there was another source, a precursor to the Septuagint. That Hebrew script is the same Isaiah that we find Yeshua reading from. So it's not that he's reading from the Septuagint. He's reading from a Hebrew that the Septuagint grabbed from.
Wow.
And we don't have that one anymore. And we can prove this. We can prove the sources and stuff based on text criticism. It's very long. It's very tedious. You got to get into the small, minute details of it. But it seems to be that there are Isaiah scrolls out there, especially when we look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, we can see there's variants out there. And it looks to be that we lost that Isaiah scroll that Yeshua is reading from.
Wow.
And all that's left now is the Septuagint. So it's not that he was reading from the Septuagint. You can't say that because it's in the middle of a synagogue, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a synagogue in Israel. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All right. So all the disciples spoke Hebrew because they could read and they could understand the Torah when Yeshua is quoting from it. So He wouldn't have been quoting it in French. I mean, he
Yeah.
would have been quoting it in the language that it was written in. That's just common sense. If you were
Yeah.
taught it
Right.
from being a child up to being an adult, you're going to quote it for what it was written in. All right. Yeshua attended the synagogues on the Sabbath and read from the Torah, which was written in Hebrew. They wouldn't have had other languages. I like to point out to people, if you haven't seen it, he's going to synagogues on the Sabbath.
Right.
It's a holy convocation. People are coming together. All right. There are 40 authors of the Bible, and they all speak and read Hebrew. I will note that a lot of people argue about Luke being a Gentile. Oh, he's something different. Luke knows so much about the Hebrew culture, and he's also called a physician. Physicians were the people who worked at the temple. So I think it's fair to say he's also a Hebrew, not a Gentile.
I've heard that as well, and that I love that you're bringing these things out because it is challenging some of the norms that we have all been taught for decades. That it's all Greek. Luke's a Greek physician, and I have done a lot of study myself into Luke, and I agree. I don't think that he was a Greek at all.
No,
No.
I don't think so.
No, and to tease everybody, in the Cochin collection, we're really excited about Luke, and we'll just leave it at that.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. I'll show
Yeah.
you that in a minute.
All right. All right. So Paul was a Pharisee who could read and speak
Hebrew.
Hebrew. Yeah, all Pharisees would have been doing that. And then when Yeshua appears before Paul in Acts 26, verse 14, a lot of people skip over this verse. This is a really important verse. Yeshua speaks to Paul in
Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Yes, he does right there in Hebrew Edi. This is what it says. So he didn't speak in Greek,
Interesting.
which is very important.
That's
Our
right.
Messiah is speaking right to Paul. So what language would have Paul been thinking in?
Yeah.
Hebrew.
Hebrew. What language would he be thinking in when he's writing his letters?
Yeah,
Hebrew.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
right.
Because he's a Hebrew. The Israelites are Hebrews. All right. So Janice, would you like to take over on this
Sure.
one? This is talking about what we are looking for.
So what I mentioned earlier is that to distinguish between New Hebrew, which is also called Rabbinic Hebrew, from other sources of Hebrew, it's helpful to understand the linguistic features such as historical context and so forth. New Hebrew, which emerged after the first revolt, reflects various social political changes and local dialect influences, including grammatical shifts in the word order, structures, and often influenced by local Aramaic dialects. This is exactly what we're looking for. These are coming from scholarly resources that we are gathering this information from, guys. So what Brian and I are doing is that we lean hard and heavy on scholarly resources, research, and this is not something we make up. This is not something we just throw out there because we think it's fun. We want to be able to give you what scholars are saying. So this is not, I just learned how to speak modern Hebrew when I started translating. This is not the case. So we're wanting to bring you the evidence based on scholarly research. So I know there's some questions out there about others that are doing translation projects, such as the Rinsbergs in Australia. Though they're nice people, they're not scholars. They translate through modern Hebrew. And they, in one case, like in the case of the Cochin and Manchester Gaster 1616 manuscripts, they did a compilation. They say they did what was called standardizing the revelation, which is a compilation. They changed it because they changed it to what they felt like it should be. And I don't think that should ever be done with any manuscript. And I do want to make this very clear. I personally, speaking for myself, am not a fan of any compilation at any time. That's my personal preference because I like to see, first of all, the image. I want to see, did you make any mistakes by transcribing the Hebrew? Then I want to see your transcription, because I know how easy it is to make that mistake. Then I want to see the translation, what you've given us, and the transcription. And then we go from there. But I do not like personally compilations, because then you may not know what verse came from what manuscript. And I'm very, very particular about knowing what source came from what source. Like I said, we're very much leaning on hard scholarly research and resources. So we expect high standards. That's what we expect. We expect high standards to say, quote your source of where you've gotten this verse from, what manuscript it came from. And if that's what you have, and one thing I have to say about the Shem Tov is that he did include the transcription of the Hebrew, and I appreciate that, because it gives you and I an opportunity to validate that translation ourselves. And so I do believe that the transcription should, at least at a minimum, go into the books, and that's something that I am a big fan of, is including the Hebrew. So that's just my personal perspective.
Yeah.
I'm a purist. I want to see everything that I can validate it myself. So I know, people make mistakes. People make mistakes, and I just want to validate to see if there were any errors in their work.
Well, look, I did say I was going to hold the questions to the very end, but since you brought this name up, that was one of our questions. What do you think about the Van Rensburg translation of the Cochin? Of the question there. So maybe we can just go ahead and address that right here.
Yeah,
Well, it's a step above Google Translate.
Well, no,
not
let me
insults them, but go ahead, Brian.
let me say this. So when we were at the previous institute that we were working with, one of my jobs was to copy and paste the Van Rensburgs into our work and what we're looking at as far as what we were working on, the Gaster, or some of the other manuscripts out there that we were working on. And we would copy and paste the Van Rensburg just to peek and see what they were doing. But also underneath them, I was also tasked with pasting in Google Translate. And so I got, out of all the people on the planet who was comparing the things, I saw firsthand they were so close.
Very close.
And walking exactly, I mean, to the point where it's like, okay, I don't know what they're actually translating. But let me just say this. They're doing work. Good for them. Keep going, put out work. The world needs to be exposed about,
and they're putting it
the
out for
Hebrew,
free. And I
putting it out for
appreciate that.
free. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I say to them, kudos and keep going.
Mhm.
But I understand that they're calling their stuff Cochin, but I'm not entirely sure they're translating from the Cochin manuscripts. I believe that they're calling the Gaster Cochin, and so the Gaster is very, very easy to read. It's block lettering. But Janice and I, if you go back and watch our Revelation series, we demonstrate that there is big differences between the Gaster and the Cochin manuscript that is truly the Cambridge collection.
Right.
A lot of scholars just assume that they were copies of each other, but they're not. You have to get into
and
clarifying
we've
question.
seen
If I could.
we've seen a few people call the Manchester Gaster 1616 Cochin, and it is not the Cochin. We call it Cochin because we want it separated from the Manchester Gaster 1616, which is a beautiful block letters. But Cochin, as you guys know, is a mess. You can go look on our website and look at it. Well, we think it's beautiful, but it's going to be a little bit messy to you guys.
It's right. I don't want to be conspiratorial, but it almost seems like there's an agenda to hitch on to kind of what we have driven as the main phraseology of calling this the Cochin collection.
Right.
And it's like not everything from there is the Cochin collection. So
right.
So the Gaster is definitely different.
Janice, you had mentioned that sometimes people, the ones we just mentioned, are using or maybe using modern Hebrew grammar rules to translate ancient biblical Hebrew. What's wrong with that?
So there's a lot wrong with that. An example would be, say, a Hebrew active participle. A Hebrew active participle, and I'll explain that to you in a minute, in biblical Hebrew can translate one of three ways: as a noun, an adjective, or an active verb. Okay. In modern Hebrew, it's active verb. 99.9% of the time, it's active verb, such as running and dancing and jumping and singing and so forth. But when you're looking at biblical text, you need to determine, is this a runner? Is this one who runs, or is this running? He's running. And
Okay.
so that it will make a difference. Now, these verb forms will be used differently. Now, we also have a verb form that was used during the first century called the Nith Pael, that is a combination of two different binyans. But ladies and gentlemen, what that's called is just a structure of the verb form, and that it later went extinct after the first century. So that, and if you didn't catch that, you would think somebody just had a spelling error. Okay. And so modern Hebrew has a different set of rules, and it's influenced by other languages that are modern languages that was influenced by that the first century people were not yet influenced by, such as, Spanish or whatever. We're looking for that particular Hebrew of the late Second Temple. And this is New Hebrew or Rabbinic Hebrew. So this is not going to be the same as modern Hebrew. Things are going to translate different. You're going to see different words in modern Hebrew. You make a lot of assumptions. And the reason why it's extremely important to know about what century you're looking at, you have to consider that what happened during that time, what the language would look like at that time. So if I'm going to pre-exilic or First Temple writings, then I have to get into the Hebrew of that writing time frame. Now, if I'm not paying attention, and let's say I'm looking at first century and I see something that's spelled classical, I mean, like lekach, such as he took, that's spelled that way in classical biblical Hebrew as well as modern Hebrew, but it's not spelled that way during the first century. It's spelled as lekach with an extra yod, lekach, and you can see that with the sound in the lekach.
Gotcha.
And that's what we're looking for. And if you blow through it and you're just translating, you're going to miss that. You're going to miss that one small yod that gives you the Aramaic influence of the first century. So that's the reason why those things you have to understand from a scholarly point of view so that it's not missed, and so that you can identify these markers of the first century. And I hope that answers your question.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to continue on with what Janice is saying. We experienced this when we were working at one of the institutes we were working at. We were experiencing this with people who only knew modern Hebrew, and they were being tagged along into the translating committees and in the meetings and stuff. And we ran into this issue where they knew the Hebrew words.
Modern Hebrew.
They could read the words. They knew what the words are, but those words had meaning changes over decades and eons.
Right.
And those words did not mean the same as what they meant in the first century. Janice talks
Yes.
about like the word bad. Somebody who loves their car, in today's
Right.
vernacular of English, they say that's a bad car. Well,
Right.
what exactly do you mean by that?
I
Because
thought you liked your car.
yeah, you like it, right? Why are you calling it bad?
That's sick. Is it
it's
really?
Yeah,
sick,
or a sick car,
dope
right?
or whatever,
How's
all
the
those
car sick?
words.
Did they get the flu? Right.
And,
Right.
Victor used that term on me. I'm like, is sick good, Victor? Is like,
Yeah.
he says, yes, Janice, sick is good. Okay,
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
it.
So you have a shifting in meanings, and
That's
some of
right.
them even flip. You have like I remember learning about cucumber, the biblical word for cucumber. Today's Hebrew, it means eggplant. So
Right.
there's a lot of these where you go and try to translate. Well, you're not going to come out with the same thing. It's going to be a different product. And also, we were having other issues with the modern people skipping over things
Right.
and just flying through translating, and they're missing all these other little nuggets of how the words are put together. So
Right.
modern Hebrew can can really cause a lot of issues if you're trying to do translation work for biblical
Right.
Hebrew.
So
I
let me
like
give you
how
an
that-
example. Can I give you an
Oh, go ahead.
example?
Yep.
So the word yashav means he sat, right?
Yeah.
And yoshev means one who sits. If you're looking at that from modern Hebrew, okay, you can say, well, that's what it means. It truly means that. Biblical Hebrew, it can also mean he dwelled.
Mm.
And when I mentioned that to someone that was a modern Hebrew speaker on our team, she says, that just doesn't make sense to me, because that's just, why would he be dwelling? This is a he's sitting word. And so modern Hebrew speakers do not, some of these things they do not get because they're not trained in the grammar. They're modern Hebrew speakers, right? They're not trained in the grammar of the biblical Hebrew. And that's where the connection is. That's what we're looking for, but they're not going to understand all this entirely.
Well, I love how at the end of this quote that you have, you're often influenced by local Aramaic dialects. That is something that I was familiar with the term Yeshu. In the Cochin manuscripts, you don't see Yeshua, you see Yeshu, and I may be killing that pronunciation, but can you? And I recently, I dug into this. I found some very good scholarship that said that this was just a colloquial expression of how the Galileans, how their dialect was. They would take the ayin and just toss it. They wouldn't pronounce it, just like we have. Look, I live up in northern West by God, Virginia. I found out that that's how you pronounce that. And northern West Virginia is different than southern West Virginia. When we moved up here, we found out there was a term called Ewans. And I'd never heard of that, right? So that's a different dialect people use all the time up here.
Yeah, and I grew up an hour and a half away from where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And it was you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Where Jeff is from, it was y'all.
Y'all, right?
It's
But
Yeah.
up here, it's Ewans.
Yeah. So
Wow.
and so it's interesting. I had not heard anybody else except these other two scholars talk about that because everyone always goes to the second century acronym that the rabbis that don't like Yeshua came up with Yeshu, and it means something very negative towards Yeshua. But just recently on a podcast, Dr. Nehemiah Gordon even brought up that is a Galilee. That's a sign that these were the Galileans that were speaking. He agrees and says that was a first century Galilean dialect where they just took the ayin and just tossed it. They didn't pronounce it. So those are all of these markers showing that this is from the first century, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, the first century.
Yeah, and I can expound a little bit on why they would toss the ayin.
Okay.
If I may.
Is it because of their mullet?
The mullet?
Yeah, I've always heard that they were the rednecks of the.
Oh, so they are. So they're different in that sense, but they're also like more metropolitan. They're more interacting with other cultures and more experienced than the people in the near Jerusalem up in the mountains. So like they're very religious in the mountains, but they're also isolated. So they're interacting more. But I would say that they're probably, the Galileans would be more educated because they're interacting with more things.
Wow.
Travel routes and stuff like that. But one of the things that is specifically unique is that the Galilean region and pretty much people north were correctly pronouncing the ayin the way that it was supposed to be said. So here in America, English people speaking in Hebrew sound, they don't know what the ayin typically would sound like properly from his history. We just say Yeshua with the Yeshua.
Okay.
Or they might even go higher. Yeshua. Yeshua. We're more down. But the proper way to say it at that time is a nasal back sound, and it's a downward. So Yeshua. It goes through your nose and down. Yeshua.
Yeshua.
And so there's so much
Ooh.
effort in saying with the downward instead of. There's so much effort in it that you would want to toss it. Because it's like I gotta say it this way. So and when I say
Yeshua.
Yeshua, I can say it really fast and soft and hard, whatever. It
Gotcha.
fits really quickly. Yeshua. But if I say Yeshua, now I got that extra ending that's causing so much energy and stuff. So it makes sense that they would toss it. But this
Wow.
is also why we see the disciples so easily spotted in the crowds when people are turning on them and saying, "Oh, there's one from the Galilee." Well, how do they know they're from the Galilee? It's because they're
Yeah.
speaking properly. They're using the
Wow.
ayin the way that it's supposed to be used. They're standing
Wow.
out like a sore thumb. When the people in Jerusalem, the Judean people of the mountains did not pronounce that A with the nasal down.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, guys, look, you are learning things here tonight that I've never even heard. Thank you, Brian, for bringing that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, it almost sounds like a Squidward pronunciation. I'm just gonna throw it out there. There we go.
Yeah.
Keeping it real, guys. There we go.
You're welcome. All right. Let's keep jamming. What? Right?
All right.
All right. So Janice mentioned the Cochin collection. This is the actual port city. Today they call it Kochi, but this is where this manuscript was found. Definitely got there from boat. You can see the relation to Saudi Arabia and Yemen. It's just straight across the Arabian Sea. And it then got taken to Cambridge University, and that's where it's housed today. And these are the manuscript code numbers: MSOO 132, MSOO 1161, MSOO 1162. Those are very important. When you're trying to pin down what exactly are you speaking about, you have to go back to these code words. Check the writing of what people are saying. They could be calling it Cochin, but they're using different code numbers. They're coming from different manuscripts.
Right. From different university libraries too.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's very important to note.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the Cochin manuscripts and what are the does nots. That's what I'm calling this. So this is kind of cute and fun.
I like that.
It does not come from the Greek. Janice and I have demonstrated that. Go watch our series on Revelation. You can check our work. James has a section at the very end. Looks like someone lost part of the manuscript, and that is coming from the Greek. But the rest of that is not Greek. We have the Matthew shows incredible evidence that it's not coming from the Greek. It differs in a lot of places. And so we're really excited about the manuscripts that we're going through. And so far, we've estimated about, Janice, so you say about 40% of our collection is coming from.
So I'm going to go into and show you guys which ones are impressive and which ones are maybe not as impressive.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the actual books.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's a teaser there then.
Yes.
All right. So it does not come from Aramaic. We absolutely demonstrated that in our Revelation series.
Absolutely.
Boy, did we do that. Okay. Does not have signs coming from other languages into Hebrew. Okay. And it's pretty easy to spot those. We look at the, what's it called? The Catalonian Gospels. It still contains Catalonian language and Catalonian words and grammar from Catalan. Right. So it kind of shows you like what language it came from.
Right.
Does not contain contradictions, which we find in the Greek. So that's also very important. If you know your text very well, you know there are contradictions. They're very small, but they're there. And the Cochin doesn't contain them. Does not contain inserts that are well known or suspected in the Greek. I say suspected is because these are ones that people have theorized, and it wasn't until Janice and I have played around with the text to find those and be like, oh, look, this is also missing in ours. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
And we'll look at I think we'll look at one nice cool one of those where we're like, this is probably an insert and everybody's talked about it for years, and to my knowledge we're the first ones to point this out.
Wow.
So it does not contain Greek
Ooh.
gods. And I have a note that says, okay, I need to explain. So let me
Yeah.
put this down and I'll go back to this. Okay. So we have a guy on our team. He just recently joined. He used to do a podcast. Maybe he's still doing his podcast, Under the Oak Trees. Shout out to Justin and his wife Wendy. So they're writing articles now for us, kind of capturing the stuff we're working on, and we're putting it on projecttruthministries.org. You can go check out those articles. They're deep dives. They give you extra information that we don't have time for. But Justin's taking up that slack and he's putting out stuff. So he came to me and said, I've stumbled on something and I've never seen anybody else talk about this. And so we have an article on this particular subject. The Greek manuscripts, as they are written right now, Koine Greek, they contain words that also are the names of Greek gods. Let that settle in.
Wow.
You have Greek god names in the Greek text, not phrased as gods, but they're also the same names. So they're using them, but they're also meaning other gods. Just for basic words. And I thought that was pretty shocking because I was thinking to myself, if I'm a disciple of Yeshua, I'm not going to pin that down. I'm not writing those words.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to write another deity's name in my sentence structure, just talking about faith or mercy or whatever. That would be absolutely shocking to do. And they're there. So,
wow.
There you go. I don't know if that's been made public, but it's definitely on Project Truth Ministries. You can go check out the artitle, go a little deeper.
That is fascinating. Yeah. That is fast. I've not heard anyone talk about that before, with other manuscripts at all. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, the more we pick at the Greek, the more we see. So let's pick a little bit more.
True.
Okay. All right. So what's up with this collection? We're going to talk about the what's up. So Janice, you can jump in on these two and kind of explain more. The sentences are clearer, they're direct, they're less wordy, and they're shorter in many cases.
Right.
They do deliver the same amount of information, but sometimes more, but they're shorter and compact, and they're not redundant. That was another thing that we kept seeing when we compared to the Greek. The Greek would be redundant or repeating itself.
Right.
It maintains the culture, i.e., we see words like menorah versus candlestick. Candlestick being in the Greek, menorah. We see everywhere it's maintaining the culture, which is the Hebraic culture.
Yeah.
First century Mishnaic Hebrew with the regional Aramaisms, including idioms and word puns. This is something, I got to be a critic of even myself here. We are digital. Wow. Why can't I say this word? Diligently.
Diligently. I just wonder what you're saying.
Combing through our manuscripts, translating, working, putting notes and history and, having our minds blown. But there are Hebrew word puns and idioms in there in abundance, just like what Dr. Roy Blizzard found in his research. He found by back translating the Greek into Hebrew, he found all these Hebrew idioms and word puns. And he said, oh, this is amazing. This proves that, coming from original Hebrew source. Our Cochin collection, especially the Matthew, contains those. And I have seen those. I've found a few, but I know there's more. We just haven't spent the effort and time on, combing through for that very task because we're so pressed doing other things. But I guarantee you, there's a lot more in there. And if anybody wants to join the cause and find those Hebrew word puns and idioms, rhyming schemes in the Hebrew, you're more than welcome to send us links to what you find.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Fixes problems that we find in the Greek. Yeah. Maintains that the Torah was not done away with. This is pretty big. This doesn't fit with mainstream doctrine, but it's
Right.
also in the Greek text. The Greek text, basically says that the law is not done away with. There are places that are ambiguous and you can have wiggle room. Well, in the Cochin collection, completely slams the door on the wiggle room. It gets very direct and it upholds Torah. It does away with your outs and ways you can twist to get out of saying that the laws applies. It's very, very clear. Cochin collection says the law is not done away with. Any comments or questions about that?
I do have a couple questions so far. I don't know if you guys want to go ahead and just hit some
Sure.
of these, but
Sure.
Chad's got two questions here. He's
Oh.
Maybe not understanding even what we're talking about here tonight. How come we've never found any copies of Hebrew New Testaments? We have, and that's what we're talking about tonight is the Cochin collection. It's the entire New Testament in Hebrew. We believe that these are copies of what Thomas or maybe even Andrew, if I'm saying that correctly, brought from the Antioch, Jerusalem area when they went and did their missionary work over in India. So that's that. I think I'm answering that question for you. Okay, is that all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
that was
No,
good.
absolutely. That's correct.
And then the other question he had, I like this. It kind of goes back to my Septuagint question earlier. How come Matthew quotes the Septuagint in most of his Old Testament citations?
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying is there's a manuscript that's lost.
Right.
And there's a link up.
That's
Yeah.
what you had answered earlier, though, right, Brian?
Yeah. So like all of the Torah scrolls, that were in the temple, they either got moved or they got destroyed. And then, with the Romans and a lot of the manuscripts then left and went to Pella, or they got buried out in the desert, like kind of what we see with the Dead Sea Scrolls. But once they went to Pella, they ended up in Spain and Europe, and then some went to China, India. Then they just kind of disperse and then they deteriorate, and hopefully somebody's copying them and preserving them. And what we see is if you track these messianic communities, they're typically the ones that are keeping these things safe and treasured. And so that's kind of why
Would you guys
number.
say that when you're reading through the Cochin Hebrew Matthew, where we see quotes from the Old Testament, would you say that it lines up more with a Hebrew version of the Old Testament versus the Septuagint version?
In most cases, it's word for word with the Hebrew.
Yeah, the Hebrew. I would say
There's only one or two cases where they just changed one word or spelling of one word.
Okay.
But they line up with the Hebrew.
Right. And probably why there's an overlap there is because they're both in Greek. So you're filtering them into the same language. So you're going to get overlap. And I think that's probably what a lot of people are seeing, but then they're suspecting that it's coming from the Septuagint, but that's just not the case. Matthew does not have a Septuagint laying in front of him. And all these historians, all these people from the first century all saying Matthew wrote it in Hebrew would really destroy that notion that Matthew started with the Greek.
One more question before we get going. This question comes from Allison Ashley. Would Paul write in Hebrew to the Gentiles of the areas around? I would think it makes sense to write in the language the Gentiles would understand. So she's talking about the epistles with Paul, maybe like to Galatia or to Corinth, different things like this. So what do you think about that?
Question. Janice, do you want me to take it? I'll take it.
Go ahead and take it.
Yeah, that is a good question. That is a spot on question. That's a question you should be asking.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is when we look at the Paul's letters, it's hard to filter out what is original Hebrew. We haven't spent a lot of time on it, but we have the understanding that we're going to find quite a few of them being from a Greek source in our collection. And that might just be the case that a lot of what Paul wrote was in Greek because it's going to travel very far. People need to read it. It's a common language. So it does make sense for Paul to be writing in Greek. He might not have only written in Greek. He might have written some and had some of them put in Greek and then some of the local stuff put in the Hebrew. But one thing for certain, I must point out, the book of Hebrews, written to Hebrews, what language should that be in?
Right.
Hebrew.
It
There we
should
go.
be in
Yeah.
Hebrew. And
Yeah.
so we're very confident and happy about the book of Hebrews that we have. Again, there are only so many people, so we haven't spent a lot of time on it, but we liked what we saw in that one.
Okay.
Right.
One more last question was snuck in here right at the end, and then we'll proceed. Can you address the trend of reception of the Cochin where people are more willing to consider Revelation and I'm going to say Jacob, there's no James, as authentic more than the Matthew, the Cochin Matthew, that she corrects herself at the end of that. So one claim is Matthew is rabbinic. So what do you think about that?
I guess I'm trying to understand the question. Now, James has some verses that appear as first century. It's not entirely, the Cochin James is not entirely from the first century source, so some going to have more. The Cochin Matthew has quite a bit. In fact, it's the best one we have out of all of the writings, that it has the markers of the first century. James is on the low side. It has the least amount compared to Matthew and Revelation. And we're going to show you some because Paul does have writings here that shows the first century markers. Now, the question is would he have written in a couple of languages? Maybe. We can't say that he didn't. But I do see that some of Paul's writings does have the markers of the first century as well. But go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, I would agree with you. Yeah, no.
Okay. Yeah, does that answer the question or did I miss it?
No, I think that's good. I think that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, and Janice, we did a show together on the book of James. If you remember that one. Yeah, so that's in the playlist, guys. Go check it out. Not right now, but there we go. Yeah. All right, Mr. Brian.
All right. Let's keep soldiering on like lions. Dismantles a lot of man-made doctrinal beliefs. You can see that in our Revelation series. There's a bunch of sections of sentences that are missing, and when you take those out, some of these doctrinal beliefs kind of fall away, and some of them are kind of wacky. We'll kind of see one of them a little bit later. Revelation alone. This is really great. I love this. So Revelation alone. This is everybody listen to this. Just the Cochin Revelation alone has 42 major discoveries that differ from the traditional Greek.
Wow.
We have 42.
Not just spelling or little small words. This is big deals.
Yeah. These are big deals. Yeah. These are really big deals.
Mm-hmm. And considering how many words are in the book and then how many sentences, 42 is actually not a lot. It sounds a lot to us, but it's not a lot. But those 42 major differences are very unique, and a lot of them just kind of point to either the time period in history and kind of fits and fixes things. Janice and I we did a really cool video talking through the Aleph Tav versus the Alpha and Omega, and how the Cochin does not have any of those.
No, and the reason why is because it's a direct quote from 3 places in Isaiah. So they wouldn't have written the Alpha and Omega. They would have written first and the last, and that's from Isaiah. So that was a change in the Greek.
And our manuscript is consistent with not using it, whereas the Greek is not consistent. It uses it in a few places, then it stops, and then it picks back up later. and ours is being very consistent all the way through. So
Wow.
there's just an example.
That's
Like it.
right.
Mhm. All right, now this I really like. I have yet to do a series or video on this or any teaching on this, but Janice and I have talked about this. The Cochin Revelation has 45 pair-ups with the Exodus story.
Wow.
Just the Exodus story. 45 link-ups to the story and matchups. Even the Hebrew words will be the same Hebrew words, and it's like, this is so cool. And then we don't. I don't think we've put together a number. Janice, have we put together a number of how many Old Testament pair-ups of the Cochin Revelation?
No, but we probably should do that because
That's a
that's
big
going to be
number.
extremely important, especially when you consider Matthew and the connections in Matthew. I think we really should. We will do that. We're going to have to.
Yeah. But yeah, we see more link ups to the Old Testament than we see in the Greek, and that's important. That's what we want to
Right. In
see.
the Tanakh,
You know, if this
right.
is coming from someone who knows the Torah and is the Hebrew culture, first century, they're going to be writing it, so they're going to be
In Hebrew.
referencing and quoting the Old Testament.
That's awesome.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into the.
Allison Ashby's mind is blown right there. There we go, guys. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, mine too, guys. That's amazing. And you would hope to see that. And that's what we should be seeing is these Hebrew documents going back and matching word for word what we're seeing out of the Tanakh or Torah altogether. So I think that's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's in step with our Messiah. When Yeshua was here walking around, what was he doing? He was quoting the Old Testament, the Torah, the Tanakh. He was quoting it left and right in places. You think he's just talking about Judas there, but he's actually talking about a Bible verse, and you don't even see it. So
it's good.
Just fits. Janice.
Yes, this one's
take this one.
mine. You want to go ahead and.
Yeah.
All right. So we know Matthew has the highest number of Hebrew markers. Beautiful, beautiful manuscript. We're going chapter by chapter of the Matthew in our videos now. We're going to demonstrate all the exciting things that we're finding in Matthew. These are mind-blowing things that you guys do not want to miss. So Matthew, beautiful, has the Hebrew we're looking for, and I love the Matthew. Mark also has these positive markers, right?
Wow.
So I'm telling you, Mark also has it. Maybe not as many as Matthew, but it surely does have it. So yeah, we got Mark. So what's the next one, Brian? Luke. Guess what, guys? Luke is getting to be my favorite. It has so many Hebrew markers, the markers of the first century, that it blows my mind. And let me tell you how important this Luke is, because this the scribe was so honest that there were some verses he could not translate. And because he could not translate it, he left it off. He just didn't try. I mean, it was untranslatable. It was gone. Maybe the manuscript was damaged in that area. So there were a number of verses. To me, that's important because when you look at the Manchester Gaster 1616, which is supposed to be a copy of the Cochin, they actually have every verse represented. And we don't know where those verses came from, but it did not come from the Cochin manuscript. So Luke is extremely exciting to see. That one really shocked me to the number of the Aramaisms that I see. I love it. I love that one. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah.
John, believe it or not, John also has Aramaisms. John has not as many as Matthew and Luke, but it has Aramaisms that has the markers of the first century. It's beautiful. Now, guys, when you're because a lot of times people say, well, what about John 6:4? You don't know until you get to, yes, it has John 6:4, but here's the deal. We don't know until we get looking at word for word. We look for word patterns. We look for word changes. We look for example, the name of Jehovah, which was originally written down by the disciples, was eventually eliminated. Then there's 3 different type of traditions that we found so far just in Matthew where they represent the name of Jehovah, and that's the double yod, the word Hashem, and then there's the Hey Gershayim with the little 2 marks over the Hey, all represents the name of Jehovah. That means there was at least 3 different scribes that have touched this that said, well, I'm going to put in my tradition, I'm going to put Hashem, or I'm going to put Hey Gershayim, or I'm going to put this. So we look for patterns like this, and we look for the verb forms that if it was something of a verb form from the like First Temple. So if it's a verb form from the First Temple, it doesn't make sense to be in this translation, in this copy, right? So when you have that verb form coming in from First Temple to late Second Temple, we got a problem. That means it's most likely a translation. That means somebody says, you know what, I'm going to add this in, and I'm going to use a verb form that when I'm reading the classical Hebrew. And so we're not looking for something that's classical Hebrew. That's a no-no in my book to have classical Hebrew in a late Second Temple manuscript. So what else we got on that? Go ahead, Brian.
We can pretty much spot those too, because we see they stick out. It's like you're using something from medieval times, or you see something more modern, or words that are not from the time period. We'll even see really old, super old biblical Hebrew words that don't fit. It's like, why is there a word here from like 2000 BC stuck in our first century? So these are kind of giveaways, that is coming from a translation. So we can spot those inserts most of the time. And, when a scribe is making his copy, a lot of times they do have manuscripts around.
Right.
They're, those places where they're doing the translation or the copying are in the location of the scrolls. So they might roll out a Greek next to it or something like that. And they might look at it and be like, oh, okay, well, there's something there. Maybe I don't trust mine. I'll put a note maybe in the margins. And then over time, those get moved in. And we see that a lot with Greek manuscripts. We even have a lot of Greeks that have footnotes or even comments at the very end of the chapter that have somehow migrated right into the text and right there in the middle of the chapter. And like, what is this? Some copyist, some scribe decided to do some things.
Right. Now, there's this discussion here going on about the Gospel of John, or the Revelation and the Revelation comments. So this is not the same author. This is not the same writers. And guys, let me tell you, this is also the same in the Greek, right? So the Gospel of John has a different writing style than the writer of Revelation, John. Okay. That the Gospel of John is written in third person, almost entirely third person type of outside of himself sort of thing. Whereas Revelation, this is where he does say he took me, and he includes this, the me, the pronouns are different. Now the Revelation, I have to tell you, is poor grammar, poor Hebrew grammar. But then you have Acts 4:13 that says that Peter and John were ignorant men. And whoever wrote Revelation truly was ignorant. I'm just telling you, the spelling was terrible. The grammar was terrible. And it was quite difficult to translate just because it's terrible to the grammar. But it's the most beautiful marker of all to have the bad grammar to me. Because that goes part of with the fact that he's supposed to be an ignorant man. But I think, Brian, you had something to add to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple of ways to translate the ignorant is like unlearned or unschooled in books. You could translate it a couple different ways in the Greek, but if you think about it, it's like everybody would have been gone to yeshiva. They would have gone to synagogue as a child to learn Hebrew. After that, you get into your trade. He's a fisherman, so he would have been able to do a little bit. But if he's spending all of his time fishing, if you get him to write stuff, it's going to have poor grammar. So that's actually
are you guys saying that Revelation looks like it's, let's just say maybe on a 6th grade, 8th grade level? I'm just trying to say this in the way people can understand. But maybe John, the Gospel of John, is written on a better, a more educated.
John is
form of Hebrew,
and a different style too. like
It's a different
James
style,
was saying.
different,
Okay.
and so and honestly, this is what we're looking for, right? We want to see the personality. If you're going to your Bible right now and you get a beautiful translation, such as the SBL Bible, the Study Bible, right? Beautiful translation. It's going to sound alike from Matthew to Revelation. It's going to sound like the same writer because it's the same translator.
Right.
We're wanting to see the personality. We want to see the errors. We want to see the spelling changes. We want to see things that matches their personality. Maybe Paul will have more formal writings, and of course their environment that they're surrounded by. You're going to see more of the Aramaic influence in the Hebrew, predominantly Hebrew. So we're looking for that first century Hebrew, and so this is what we're looking for: is the personality of the writer. And once it's translated, then you lose the personality of the writer and you get the personality of the translator.
Yeah.
So what's the
Absolutely.
next one up here?
I want to just jump in and say, I saw a question that says, are there any significant negative
Oh.
markers
Well, there we go.
in the Cochin?
Yes, and
Yep.
I can tell you what those are
Yeah.
shortly.
Oh, okay.
Um, so,
Well,
well,
let me
actually, I might as
set
well
it
do
up.
that now.
Let me set
Go
it up
ahead.
real quick though. We find positive markers all over the place. We have a
Yes.
mountain of positive markers. You can go back and watch the Revelation series. You can see our stuff in the Matthew. We found a mountain amount. I mean, it's just incredible. We do find every now and then. We find a few. Every now,
Mhm.
very rare, but we're honest with it and we show our work. We actually
We
talk
do.
about it and show it. And that's the difference when you're working through the difference of presenting everything in a linear and everything that you have and putting footnotes and pointing out those negative markers versus creating a compilation where everything can be hidden and you never see those negative markers. So
That's right.
Really
just
like
want to point that out.
So there are, like I said earlier, there are verb forms that is in classical Hebrew, which is the pre-exilic or First Temple Hebrew, and it's called the vayikol for past tense and vekatol for future tense. These were never spoken verb forms. Okay, I'm not going to go into the structure of the verb form, but a vav was added in front of this to change it to either past tense or future tense for a purpose. And so that verb form, which is completely and absolutely classical First Temple Hebrew, is never was a spoken verb form. And why would they be writing in the verb form, even though they're used to reading it? Because when you're reading from the scrolls, you're reading this verb form, and they understand what that verb form means. But when they're communicating with each other or writing letters to one another, they're not going to use that verb form, and that is a negative marker. We do have a few of those in Matthew, a handful of those in Matthew, and I think a few in Revelation. So those are what I call negative markers. So there must have been damage in that in that area, and maybe that verse was translated or maybe partially translated. We don't have any way of knowing. But if they didn't speak that verb form in the First Temple, then they're not going to be speaking it in late Second Temple. So that's my input on that.
Yeah, and it also could be a scribe is thinking something because he knows a certain way. He's read things a certain way. So he's thinking in his head, he's copying, but then he's writing what he's thinking. That happens
Could
to
be.
people. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons why scribes make mistakes and errors and issues. I'm going to pretty much tell you, there really isn't a manuscript that was scribed perfect. I mean,
No, I
people are
agree with
going
that.
back and cleaning it up and making edits. And if you zoom in with your little microscope, you can see, oh, they erased here and put another word.
That's right.
So like all over
That's
the
right.
place, this happens. Very common, very hard, and very difficult to do that kind of scribal work.
That's right. So now we've got Revelation. We know Revelation. It has a lot of positive markers. It's a beautiful, beautiful writing. I say beautiful because I love the fact that there are that many errors and pronoun errors and things like that. It was written by someone ignorant, and then it was written by someone using the first late Second Temple writings, Mishnaic Hebrew, using Mishnaic terms and so forth. And so I love this revelation. It's beautiful. And this revelation, guys, if all I ever got to put my hands on and help to to work with was that, my life would be complete. But the Father allowed us to work with all of these, and so He always gives us more than what we've ever imagined. So, what's on the next page, Brian?
Yeah, we've been drinking from the fire hose, Janice.
Yes, we have. So, Acts has positive markers as well.
hmm
So it's also has some beautiful ones. Maybe not as many as Matthew, but it does have
Yeah.
them. So what's the next one? Romans, Colossians, Ephesians, Corinthians, Galatians, and Philippians. All
Wow.
of them have the late Second Temple markers in Rabbinic Hebrew. Say it what you may, it has
That
it.
Fascinating.
I'm just telling you. Now, it doesn't have the number that it has, Matthew, like I said, but it does have some. And so I put it on the list of it's extremely impressive, and
Yeah.
the language is a little bit more formal. So
Yeah. And again, we need time to study these things out.
yes,
This is all early spot checking and letting you know, hey,
yes,
we found some positive things here. It's worth studying and getting into this and learning more about what's here. So,
that's right.
yeah.
I mean, once you get into the word for word, then you start seeing, okay, well, I can see where this change happened and this change happened, but it has to happen on a word for word analysis. And that part has not been completed. So, okay, Romans 2:2 and Galatians 1:3, Paul uses the word moran, which is an Aramaic word meaning our master. So these are examples of Aramaic words that he's mixed into it. Now we know Romans he wrote. Philippians 3:3, he employs rabbinic terms such as beit din. Again, that's a Mishnaic term. That's a Mishnaic term. Beit
Yeah.
din. Okay. He also uses Aramaisms such as markings, like I said earlier, like the lek, lichak, let's see what else. He's got several. That extra yod is added. That's an Aramaic spelling.
Mm.
So these are beautiful Hebrew markers that are used in these writings. So let's go to the next one. Hebrews also has positive markers. It has Paul uses anu instead of he uses an anu in some of this isn't Paul's writing. Hebrews has not got the markers of Paul's writing. That's the main thing of this right here, is that this writing style is different from Paul writing in like Romans. So for example, Paul, when he writes he writes here in his writings of Romans of anu, which is a more formal writing of we. But when it's written here in Hebrews, it's anaknu. Okay, all of the other writings that were attributed to Paul, it does not have anaknu. It has anu. And so you can see these differences. This Hebrews does not connect to Paul, but it does have Hebrew markers of the first century.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll say even the Greek book of Hebrews points out that it is a Hebrew original. I mean, the language and the way it's being phrased, the culture, the depth of it. The Greek is usually flat, but there's so much detail being laid out in the Greek. It's like, I'm pretty sure this was originally Hebrew. I mean, it's titled Hebrews.
Right.
So the Greek, I think, gives itself away also. So it's really exciting to have this one in our hands.
Yes.
And I'm really excited to dig in to see how much matches, like what are the differences. Did the Greek lose anything? Did it gain more things? Are there inserts? So yeah.
Okay, what's our next one? Okay, in Hebrews 6:6, the term hazarim is used. That's an Aramaic word meaning returning or one who is repenting to. We use that as that like shuvah or shuv. That is what we use in Hebrew. But of course, they're using an Aramaic term. These are examples of these Aramaic words mixed in with all the Hebrew. So this is what we're looking for, are these words. First and Second Peter, although no grammatical Aramaisms, this is written with the rabbinic abbreviations such as the Zayin Membresh, Zamar. And that's the power of God singing, guys. If you haven't seen that teaching, you got to go see that teaching.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so let's see. We got James. It has some Aramaism, some markers. such as Li 10, and we've got the word Zamar. So we've got a few things in the Yaakov that has a positive, at least a positive influence by the first century. Maybe not entirely from the original Hebrew, but it has positive influences. So now, what's the next page? Okay, these that do not smile politely upon us. These are the ones that do not have the first century markers. The Timothys, the Titus, the Philemon, and Jude. These do not have the markers of the first century. But what's our next statement here? Here's what we need to consider. First and Second Timothy and Titus, which are called the pastoral epistles, they are by scholars estimated to have been written about 100 years or century after Paul. Okay, some say after Paul, right? This comes directly out of the Oxford Study Bible. This is a quote from the Oxford Study Bible. So this is estimated to be about a century behind Paul. Some say that maybe there was a school that was started under Paul, but I'm just telling you these. I was disappointed to see the Timothys and the Titus having absolutely no markers like the rest of the Pauline writings.
Okay.
But this is the reason why, is that this is somebody that is not Paul himself, but that according to the scholars, this is somebody that wrote it 100 years or so after Paul.
Yeah, and so we're matching up with what we find with what their stance is on the
And it
history
lined
of those
up.
manuscripts, and it lined up.
It lined up. I was hoping to see the Timothys, and then I realized, wait a minute. Then you look in the, not only look in the SBL Study Bible, look in the Oxford Study Bible. You get the introductions to these epistles, and you'll see that they say these were written about a century after Paul, not directly written by Paul. So therefore, it does not carry those attributes of Paul.
Very,
So
very
you.
fascinating.
Yeah, so that's fascinating stuff. Very fascinating stuff. So we don't have those markers at that time. Here it is, this quote. This perspective is supported by the unobserved discrepancies in vocabulary, church organization, theological themes, and when compared to Paul's undisputed letters, such as Romans, this is where it differs. Now, this is directly from the Oxford Study Bible, where it says this is the reason why. This doesn't match to the true Pauline letters.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
and I've heard that over the years too. But it's interesting that our manuscripts are kind of demonstrating the late creation also.
Now, it doesn't mean we need to necessarily throw out the Pauline letters, those letters rather, the pastoral epistles. But I do think that we need to weigh them out carefully, especially when it comes to things that conflict with the Tanakh. If it does, such as, women, you shut up. I think that one's a big problem. You be silent, women, because that is not what goes all the way back to the women at the entrance of the tabernacle who were serving in some kind of leadership role. And then suddenly you get to Second Timothy, where women are to be silenced. And then First Corinthians, was it 14, where again, that's mentioned. That looks like that was actually an insert. That came later. These are from scholars who have done good scholarly research that have said these are inserts. And so,
Janice,
women be free.
Would you say that verse? I got to do it. Guys.
Go ahead.
That verse about the righteous are as bold as lions. Would that be for men and women? Just both of them are righteous?
They are both. That is men and women.
Amen.
Yeah.
Love
Had
that.
to sneak that line in there.
Now, how many lines we got so far? Okay, I've lost count. Okay.
I'm going for a baker's dozen.
There we go.
We're going to be going for something, but yeah, let's go ahead.
All right. So I want to go through some examples, that we're going to get from the Cochin. This is one of those easy ones. This is a softball, but this is there. It's a Greek mindset, Roman mindset versus the Hebraic mindset. I want people to be able to spot these things. When you're reading your English and you're going through, if you have the right mindset, they'll jump out to you. they'll just jump straight out to you. So here we go. So if we go to Matthew 10, verse 12, it says, "And when you come into a house, salute it." And that's the Greek. The Greek word there is aspazomai, and it means to enfold in the arms, to salute. Figuratively, sometimes it will be used to be embrace, greet, salute, or take, but it was a Roman salute. This is what the Roman government did. This is what Roman soldiers did. This is what the Greek soldiers did. They would stick their arm out. I'm not going to do it in case someone takes a screenshot and say, "Oh, he's doing the Nazi thing." No, they would salute the home. They would salute people, and it was like a way of saying hi. So do we think Yeshua is telling his disciples? Do we think he's telling the disciples to go and do a Roman salute at people's homes?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So that's what I'm saying. If you keep in mind the Hebrew mindset, it'll be like, oh, something wrong there. That's probably not what it should say. Maybe it's a translation issue switching into the Greek. Let's go check the Cochin. Cochin Hebrew Matthew 10:12 says, "And when you enter, ask for the peace of the men of the house."
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. Yeah.
So that would be
That's
a typical
Hebrew.
thing. That's
Yeah.
Hebrew through and through. This is something
Very
Yeshua
Hebrew.
would have said. He would have said, when you go to someone's home, you say, "Peace. Is there peace here? Can I come in? Are you peaceful? Will
right.
you allow me to bring my peace into your peaceful home?"
That's right.
That is culturally what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Supposed to greet
Oh, that's
people
good.
with peace. So don't think they were goose stepping and saluting in the first century, being Jews of Judea.
Good. That's good.
All right. So now let's look at some examples of addition. We're going to look at this Greek right here. This comes from Revelation. This is chapter 19, verse 10. It says, "And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See, you do it not. I am your fellow servant and your brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy." Now, the reason why I really want to get to this verse is because scholars have really argued over the years, what does it mean for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy? There's been debates over this over the years. All kinds of theories and ideas and concepts that popped up, doctrinal beliefs and all this. I mean, it gets wild. So we check the Cochin Hebrew Revelation. It's not even there. It's missing.
Spirit of prophecy is not even there. Wow.
It's not even there.
Not there.
Wow. Yep.
It says there, and your friends and your brethrens who have the testimony of Yeshua. We can see that in the text. And then it says, make your prayers to Jehovah.
You know, I do want to add, though, so we're looking at manuscripts that have been hand copied, hand preserved over and over again. So we can't always say that this was originally without that phrase. We can say that it could have been, if it was originally there, that it just was left off mistakenly. So
it's a possibility.
There's all kinds of theories. We don't know why it's not there.
But I find it interesting. The thing that had been plaguing people for a long time of like, meant. What does it mean?
Yes.
And lo and behold, it's not even in ours.
That's right. That's right. That's true.
Wow. Wow, that's fascinating.
Uh-oh.
There's another
example.
Thing up there, guys.
What is it, number 6?
What's going on? What do you see?
Yeah.
We see another lion.
I'd be lying if I wasn't the one saying it's a lion. Here we go.
Did you say the word?
I did. There you
go. All right. Let's go to the Greek. Revelation 3:20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and I will sup with him and he with me. Sup being like, I will eat food or drink with him. So they're coming inside of him and doing that.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Cochin. It says in Revelation 3:20, "See,
Wow.
I am standing before the door knocking. If one hears my voice and opens the door, I will walk in." See how short and sweet that is? And we don't have this, I will come into him and I will sup with him and he with me. We don't have that in our text.
Right.
It's adding
I
this confusion here. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I really love this. My grandfather, Lloyd Shackelford, when I was I had just been born again, not too long, and I got to hear he went and preached at a little small Methodist church in Karnak, Texas, and that was his text. "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." And then boy, that's powerful. And I love the difference that we see here, guys, with the Hebrew versus the Greek, and it just makes so much more sense. I really enjoy
It
this.
does.
I,
It does.
that's what I'm saying. These verses, they get tighter and they get more powerful. Like
Mm,
he's sticking with the topic. Like, you knock on that door, I'm
I'm
coming
gonna
in.
answer it. That's
I'm
good.
going to answer
Oh,
and I'm going to walk in.
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's a power statement right there.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Upholding the Torah. I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Let me see that. Let's go to Matthew 5:7. It says, "This is the Sermon on the Mount." So this is actually this is that spot I said we haven't publicly displayed this yet. So this is the
Okay.
first time we're going to make history here on these next few.
Ooh,
By the way, we have recorded. I'll just tease this. Janice and I have recorded. We've gone back to it verse by verse
Yeah.
in the Matthew.
oh,
In chapter
oh,
Yeah.
5.
For chapter
Oh.
5. Big
And
announcement.
we
there.
had to on chapter 5. Just
Yeah.
had to.
We had
because it's all high points.
It's so
There's
many
so
big,
many.
there's so much. We found so much in the Sermon on the Mount that we were just like, Janice, we have to go verse by verse. There's too much in this
That's right.
chapter. And we've had our minds blown so many times. Like, why not blow everybody else's mind?
Right.
Let's
So this
share
is-
Right.
the thing.
So this is Matthew 5:7 is what we're talking
Yeah.
about right here, right?
Right.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And it says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." And the
Okay.
Greek word is elimon, and it is merciful. That's what it means.
Okay.
So no real wiggle worm. That's the English. Now let's look at the Cochin. It says, "Blessed are those who love, for them I have compassion." So
It's
Wow.
beautiful.
love
Wow.
is the whole purpose of the Torah. Love God, love
Absolutely.
your neighbor. If you love God and love your neighbor, and you do all the things that the Torah says, you are being loving. You're acting in actions
right.
of love. And what happens when you are obedient to God? He blesses you and he has compassion on you.
Wow.
So this is linking back up with Torah.
Bombshell, guys, right here. Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is really
And
good.
I could see how the Greek like moved over into mercy. I could see that and why
Yes.
they did that. But wait, there's more.
There's more.
But there's more.
Let's go to verse 10 in the same chapter. This is still the Sermon on the Mount. In
Right.
the English, it says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven."
Hmm.
We probably know this verse. Like, think about it, like, oh, I'm being persecuted because I'm living righteous. That's a
Right.
common thing. A lot of believers experience that. It makes sense.
Right.
All right.
They didn't like my Facebook post. I'm being persuted for. I'm just kidding, but go ahead.
I'm gonna type back to them like a lion. Okay. All right. Let's look at the Cochin. It says, "Blessed are those who labor in judgment, for they will
Ooh.
inherit the kingdom of heaven." Let's break this down. Labor in judgment. Labor. They work.
Hmm.
They work. They have actions.
Mhm.
In judgment. What is the judgment? Judgment of God. Right ruling. Deciding what is right and wrong.
That's right.
In their life, they are actively judging what is right and wrong, that's the Torah.
That's right.
This is back to the Torah.
Wow.
Blessed are those who are executing the Torah, for they will inherit the kingdom of heaven.
That's right.
Guys, that is wow. Wow.
Right there.
Wow.
Right there in the Sermon on the Mount. And that's what we should find, because
Yeah.
Yeshua's message was to repent. What does
Yeah.
repentance mean? It means turning back to the Torah, walk right with God, obedience.
Gosh, that's so good. Yeah, if sin is missing the mark, right? If you're hitting the mark, it sounds like you're laboring in judgment.
Right.
I like that. That's good.
That's right.
That's good.
Praise God. That's a hallelujah moment right there.
It is.
Yeah, that's a
amazing.
hallelujah
Man.
moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Let's look at fixing the Greek. This is kind of fun here. This is another one of those, like, hey, we haven't released this publicly. I think this is going to be very impactful. I really enjoy this one right here. So this is Matthew 5:33. It says, again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall, I'm missing an S there, sorry about that. You shall not swear falsely, but you shall perform your oaths to the Lord, that being Adonai there, the Greek. Okay, so it's saying don't swear falsely.
Okay.
The Cochin says, again, you have heard those of old who say, you shall not support a false oath, but you shall fulfill it to the owner of your oath. So this is actually in step with the rest of the Tanakh, the rest of the Torah. With
That's right.
the Bible, the whole Bible is got all these places where you are to swear by God. You are to use God's holy name, and there's a blessing that comes along with that. When you make oaths, make vows using God's holy name, there's no forbidding of doing those oaths, those vows, those swearing, as long as it's truthful.
Right.
And so what we have here is something that's a contradiction in the Greek, because you got Yeshua saying, don't swear. We'll see another one, but here it's not about don't swear. It's about don't support a false oath. So don't support someone who has made something not truthful, saying they're going to do something they didn't.
That's wow. That's amazing.
So we're back in step with the Tanakh.
Wow. Wow.
But wait, there's more.
No, what do I see in that corner?
Is that a lion?
I don't.
Yeah,
Is
looks
it?
like a
It
lion,
looks
right?
like it.
You guys know me too much. Like I was just gonna stick these in and not make a big deal about it, and then y'all go and make a big deal. Okay. Thank you.
The setup. That's right.
Walked right into it.
There you go.
But yeah, so this one goes along with the last verse that we saw. So 33 was don't swear falsely, don't support a false oath. Now this one is verse 34 in the English. It says, but I say to you, this is Yeshua talking again. Now it would appear that he's saying don't swear at all. Just quit doing that practice. It says, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne. Now the reason why he's putting in neither by heaven is because at that time, culturally, people were false swearing, and they were swearing by the land, by the sea, by the heavens, by the sky, by the clouds. They were swearing to all these inanimate objects, but they were telling a lie. So it was like, okay, well, I'm not using God's holy name, but I swore to the dirt on the, who owns the dirt, right? It's still going back to God and his throne. So that's the content, the backdrop of what was happening there. Now let's look at the Cochin. Oh, this is so good. Verse 34. I say to you, do not swear by the heavens before the throne of Elohim, God.
Wow.
Notice what's missing. At all. At all is missing. Yeshua is not saying to not swearing. You could still swear. The Tanakh actually tells you to make oaths and swear by his name, and that you would be blessed. We are fixing the text here.
Wow. And look, there's some denominations that will teach when you go into a courtroom, you are not allowed, where the guy stands up and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth,
Right.
nothing but the truth. If you got, nope, because I'm not allowed to swear. It's against my religion. This destroys that.
It does.
Yep.
It does. It fixes that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure it is.
That is something else. My
Yes.
goodness.
All
Wow.
right. Now the next transition. So that's the end of my examples. The next one I got here is Janice, if she's ready to talk about Freiburg.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go on to that.
Sure. So there is another Hebrew gospel that has all of the New Testament. This is a translation from the Greek, a beautiful translation from the Greek, but it is a translation from the Greek. So the reason why Brian and I continue to bring up these other manuscripts is
Right.
because we want you guys to be familiar with these names. And so, because, if you have somebody that comes along and says, this is an authentic, truly from the first century source, and to say that it may have been before it was translated, okay, but it's not an untranslated copy of the original source. This
Right.
one actually, especially the Revelation and the Matthew, is nearly word for word according to the Greek. Okay. And so that's a problem in my book because I'm a purist. I want to see something untranslated. So, guys, just keep these things in mind so that you understand that if somebody says this is authentic, this is the real deal, buddy, this is it, then you need to understand this Freiburg HS 314 is absolutely a translation from the Greek. And so this is the Freiburg is a New Testament recognized as the earliest complete Hebrew translation of the New Testament, dated 1563. It's a very old one. It is believed to have been translated by Erasmus Oswaldus Schrecken-Fuchs as a professor of the Hebrew. Schrecken-Fuchs likely created this manuscript for his private study. So this is the history of this manuscript, that he translated this to Hebrew from Greek for his own personal study time. Okay, so
Let me just
Go ahead.
say, yeah, I spent a little bit of time working on looking for positive markers in this manuscript.
Yes.
And I distinctly remember I made it to chapter 2, and just in chapter 1 and 2, I found 16 major negative markers that showed it was coming from a very modern source and that it was coming from Greek. And so, it continued on, but just in those 2 chapters, it was overwhelming. I think I maybe found 1 positive marker. So when you start to see things lump up, and one side, then you start to get a feel that it's not coming from an old source, and it's not coming from original Hebrew. So
what was the major Aramaic version that you guys would compare Revelation to? I remember going through your series, and it would always, I'm saying always, in my memory, be related back to the Greek.
Yeah.
So we
had Murdoch and
Crawford.
Yeah.
So originally I put Murdoch in there, and someone contacted me and says, shame on you. Everybody knows Murdoch is a translation from the Greek, and therefore you shouldn't have used that. So I discussed it. Revelation chapter 7 video. From that point forward, we said, okay, if we're wrong, we're wrong. We will bring in the Crawford because that's what he said was the Crawford is the most authentic Aramaic. It was the original Aramaic. So therefore, we brought the Crawford in. And during this, from chapter 7 all the way to chapter 22, we proved that not only the Murdoch is a translation from the Greek, so is Crawford. So we humbled ourselves. We said we will be glad to do that because we want to do an honest review over all of these so that you see what is at hand. And therefore, we found that both of them were translations from the Greek to Aramaic.
Wow.
Hands down.
We checked it so much. You'll love this. That I still am ready to get a T-shirt for Janice. This is, but what does the Crawford say?
What does the Crawford say? I need that.
I feel like we would get people to buy that because we said it so much.
Yeah, no, I remember that, and it was just over and over and almost ad nauseum, and I'm just like, man,
absolutely.
It's just a
Absolutely.
slam dunk. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we really wanted to be honest with our review. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we surely gave it our best.
Right.
And one of the things, we got someone that's in the chat. Her name is Pam Lusker. She helped to translate the Revelation, the Cochin Revelation as well. Wonderful,
Shout out to
brilliant
Pam.
lady. One of the things that she said that really hit home with me one day, she says, Janice, for all these years, we've had our Greek New Testament, and yet we were still inspired and encouraged by it. Yet we were still, we grew through it. We grew and spiritually grew through this. Okay. It's not to say that it's no good. I'm never saying that, right?
Right.
Because we still love our scriptures. I'm just saying that if you're wanting to get to the true textual problems and you're really wanting to connect to the Tanakh and you're really wanting to look for that first century marker, this is what we're looking for to add to that spirit-filled blessing of reading the New Testament writings. And that's what we're trying to do, is to add to your already blessed studies of the New Testament writings.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I want to give a shout out to Pam. Pam Lusker played
Yes.
a very big role in
Yes.
finding a lot of these manuscripts. She has a
Yes.
librarian background. She is like a real,
Brilliant lady.
brilliant
She found almost
powerhouse,
all of them, I
important part
think.
of this process.
Yeah.
They're still finding more manuscripts. I'm sure they'll find more in the future, but she
That's
found an
right.
abundant amount. Shout out to
Yes.
Pam Lusker. Hat goes off to
Absolutely.
you.
We love you,
Thank for your
Pam.
work.
Absolutely.
All right. I
So
think we
what's
have
on our
one more
next slide?
Yeah. There we go.
Okay,
Yes, this is
so
what-
and this is basically, you're just looking at the images, right? We want
Mm.
you to be familiar with the images, that when somebody puts up an image, you can identify them, right? So there's a reason for this. You guys need to be familiar with this. The one on the left, these are what we coined the term. And she's found 80
Mhm.
Hebrew manuscripts so far. This lady, I don't know, she's a gold mine digger
Yeah.
of Hebrew manuscripts.
She
Brilliant
is
lady.
phenomenal.
I don't know how she finds them all, but she's the one that finds them all, every single one of them. If anybody has them, I'm sure she's already found it a long time ago. So, nevertheless, so the left one, that's what we call the Cochin, but that's the Cambridge manuscripts on the left. Okay. The right one, that is the Freiburg HS314. You can see on the right, there are the diacritic marks, the marks for the vowel sounds that are included. Why is this important? So from the 7th to the 9th century, CE, AD, guys, this side of the century, right? These diacritic marks were created by the Masoretes so that we would be able to pronounce these words. Now, the Freiburg has these already included. So why is that important? If somebody were to use the Freiburg as a reference, this is what the Hebrew would look like with all the little marks and everything, and they would show that. The Cambridge does not show the diacritic marks at all. So this is extremely important that you be familiar with this. Why is the Freiburg a problem to me personally? Is because it's already been essentially interpreted. It's been interpreted to mean something. So they can actually change a few vowel points to say, he didn't really mean such and such. He meant this. So I'm going to add the sounds of the verb, and yet the spelling of the verb doesn't change. Just the sound of the verb changes, which changes the meaning of the verse. I'm not a fan of any manuscript that adds the diacritic marks for me, not in the New Testament, because I just don't think that it would. I like to strip them and then translate it and then see what they say according to the diacritic marks. But these marks were not created until the 7th to the 9th century CE, guys. So this is fairly new to add those marks on there.
Yeah,
That's fascinating. We had Dr. Al Garza on talking about Psalms 110, I believe, with the idea that David said, "My Lord," says to my Lord, and it's he brings out that in the original Hebrew, when they would have wrote it down, it would have just been the consonants, and you would not have known if they were saying Adonai,
Right.
whether they're saying Adoni, and I'm thinking maybe even Adon, but So interesting enough, yeah, when you start getting the vowel pointers on there, you are making an interpretation of
That's
what
right.
the author was trying to convey.
That's
So that's
exactly right.
fascinating.
That's exactly right. You now made an interpretation. This is what he says. And this is what I'm going to say that he says, because you'd be amazed at a few little marks of what it would do and how it changes the meaning of that verse, period. It's just amazing the changes that will happen. So anyway, what's the next one, Brian?
Oh, that's the end of our slides.
No way. Did we reach
yeah.
the end?
We did reach the end.
How did we do that?
That's
Oh,
the
I
end of
love it.
that.
Oh, and Pam is right. So she mentioned there are some there's some marks of the vowel sounds that are in the Cochin. This would have been added by the scribe. And that means that he wanted us to know how you actually said this word. So there are some that has been added. It would not have existed during the first century, but he wanted to make sure that people knew how to sound it out for whatever reason. But there are a scattering of these words that have those on there, and you can see those in the images. So that is true. Those have been included in some of the words in the Cochin manuscripts.
And I think we've analyzed the writing style and I think we've identified 3 different handwriting styles. So this is 3 different types of scribes making copies of this collection. So it could have just been one of the scribes was like, hey, I need to add more detail here because I don't know really what I'm doing.
Wow. I'm fascinated by all of these things that you guys are bringing out. It is amazing research. It's amazing to look at these things. I'm going to have to go back and watch this again, guys, because you didn't tell me what was you guys were going to drop on us tonight. I want to go back and just dive into this. This is phenomenal stuff.
Do you feel like you got punched with some
Oh,
information?
he's got to get that last lion in.
Oh my goodness!
You've been rocked. Do you think you've been rocked? Seeing
wondering,
stars.
I'm just wondering, did we get anybody voting? I'm just kidding on the amount of lions. I think you would actually have to go with 4 because I didn't anticipate anything past 7. And wow, you did a really good job tonight on the line. So, guys, look, I do have one more question here. If you guys have some questions, pop them in now because I've been.
Pour them in.
This is from Amanda, going back to Revelation and John. If not John, son of Zebedee, is the author of Revelation. John, the presbyter, the elder, referenced by Papias, or John Mark, in which case Mark's gospel should look similar to Revelation. So, what are y'all's thoughts on that?
Ooh.
So Mark's gospel, we haven't really done an analysis other than the fact that I have scanned through it, looked for the Mishnaic Hebrew and Aramaisms. And like I said, it does have that. And so as far as the Cambridge manuscript, I haven't witnessed anything as far as any comparisons that I could make to Revelation, but it's a quick scan, guys. This is a long, hard, difficult journey to do this work. We're doing this on our spare time. And, I know we're not going to have all the answers to your questions, but we surely are giving it our best to get this out to you so that it's a free of charge. But I don't think I can answer that. What do you think, Brian? Do you have any input?
I would say, hey, it's something to consider and something for us to be looking for.
Absolutely.
To do our comparison. We'll add that to our list. Thank you so much for pointing that out.
Absolutely.
Again, going back to what Janice said, it's an incredible amount of work. We've been working on this over 2 years now. Wouldn't you say, Janice? That's definitely over 2 years.
It's over 2 years.
And we're still chugging along. And we're doing this for free. Just we're going to keep doing it for free because we're on a mission for God. This is the people's manuscript that everybody should see. But with that being said, we don't charge anything. We don't beg for money. But if you want to make a donation, you can go to Project Truth Ministries. You can make a donation there. Greatly appreciate anything that comes in, even if it's like 10 cents. We're happy.
This is good soil, guys. If you want to sow into some good soil, look, I back up what I talk about. This is a good ministry to sow into, and I greatly appreciate what you guys have done. And I would highly encourage people, if you're looking for a place to sow, definitely do that. I actually agree kind of here with Pam.
Yes.
That this may have been written by Lazarus. That's kind of
Yes.
my
Because he was also beloved of Yeshua.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that is an
Absolutely.
excellent point. There's a book on that. I forget the name of it, but basically walks you through a trial-like case of analyzing on whether or not the Gospel of John was written by John or
Yeah.
possibly Lazarus. And wow, there's way more there than you think is going to be there.
That's right.
So yeah.
we do have another question, guys. Do you have any thoughts on? I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name on the Asamian manuscript. Apparently, it's a 78 AD Aramaic compilation of the Gospels.
Is it Asmani?
Held and approved by the Vatican, but later tried to make it look like a forgery. Have you guys heard of this one?
No, and I haven't looked at that. My goal is to personally look at things that are both Hebrew and Aramaic, like I said. I haven't gone strictly to any Aramaic manuscript. We have a great deal of evidence that now this would have been written during the first century. There would have been a mixture of the two. Now in time, maybe we'll go. My hope and prayer is that what we're doing is that anybody doing this type of project will actually publish the pure translation with the transcription and even with the images. If you go and get permission from that university and get the images, that would be the most perfect. Get that, put it in an interlinear table so that we can all do our own analysis, whether we're scholars or whether we're lay people and we just want to learn our alphabet and we want to do our own comparison. There are people right now that now have learned how to read the Cochin manuscript because we published the images. Thanks to God bless Cambridge University. We love you guys. Thank you for allowing us to share the images. But that is extremely important that people say, I can read the letters now with a Cochin manuscript, because we need to have that skill set to be able to identify that. And I challenge you guys to do that. I challenge you to learn how to read it, read the letters, recognize the letters. The Manchester Gaster 1616 is a very easy one to start off with. You can look at that one and learn from that one. That's usually a very basic one to start with because it's beautiful block letters. But the Cochin is a little bit more difficult to read, but it's a lot of fun once you get the hang of it.
I just want to bring this up, guys. You can go to their website, the projecttruth.org. You can download this. This is chapter 1 of the Scroll of Mysteries, and I love this is what you're talking about. You actually publish the entire chapter. You see it, and then as you go down, you translate it right here. You put it into a block form so you can see it a little easier. So that's fascinating because, gosh, guys, I mean, look, that's tough. That takes time just by itself.
That's right.
And then you're putting it in the block form. You're doing a translation, which this verse doesn't even exist anywhere.
Yeah.
This is right. And you have the scriptures here for your Greek. You have an Aramaic source. Of course, we don't have this because it's not, this verse isn't here. But I tell you, the level of work that you guys have done is just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. I just love this stuff. So
this, and people are grateful for the way the interlinear table displays all this information, how to pronounce the word, the words broken down in each individual box, and of course the meaning of the words, how the word is used as far as the grammar. And so people are learning Hebrew, the biblical Hebrew, through this. And with the videos that we're doing, we're also teaching what is important, what is a marker, what is not a marker. And I think that's really what people appreciate, is now they can put what they're reading here in the paper on to what we're saying on the video, and you connect the two together. This is for those that are truly going to be scholarly and do your study, be a Berean and study with intent. That's the challenge I give to all of you.
Yeah, I just love what you guys have done. Allison Ashley asks, I don't have money. I only have time to give. How can I support or get involved?
Oh, very good question. I can answer that. you take our links, send them to other people. You hit like on our videos.
Absolutely.
You subscribe. You can send emails out to your friends. With, hey, check out this Hebrew revelation. You can give them the series. You can spread the word, spread the message. Tell them to go download. You can send the download PDF to the people. Just spread the word. That's how it helps. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I
And
love it.
what you do learn, teach it to others. Maybe start your own teaching and teach it. We're not trying to keep it to ourselves. We want you
Right.
guys to spread this, right? So there are people that are teaching this. What we're teaching them, they're translating it and teaching this in Spanish in Mexico and in Polish. So we've got people teaching this in all these different languages. And that's what we want. We're not jealous and upset that you're teaching it. We want you to teach it. We
Yeah.
want you to share this. And if you find some topic that's extremely important and passionate that you're passionate about, learn it intensely and then teach it to others. And I would love it if you guys would share it with us because we love those things. It's wind beneath our wings.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, guys, listen, you have been fabulous tonight. I'm so honored to have both you guys on at the same time.
At the
I
same
usually just
time.
get one of you, and this is just like in the candy store right now. I am just loving this, and I have a list a mile long about verses that I want to know about, and every once in a while I'm like, I wonder if they're doing anything, and I'll shoot Janice a message or I'll shoot
Yeah.
Brian a message, and you guys are so great to me. I love you. Thank you so much, because you will always you'll take time, or you'll say I don't have time, and it is so refreshing to be able to talk to people that actually are looking and handling these manuscripts
Yes.
Oh, yes.
and
Exciting.
able to give you a real answer, not a politically correct one.
Right.
Hey, look, you made me mad. Look, I'm a spirit-filled guy. You made me mad when you started taking away my Mark 16. But at the same time, hey, we need to be honest
We have
with
to
the
be
text,
honest.
because that is the biggest thing. We want to be truthful. We are the remnant,
That's
and we
right.
should be striving. We're not going to know everything. We're not going to have it all figured out. But by golly, I want to be able to strain, like Paul says, pushing in, straining towards that prize.
That's right.
And I think that's what this is about, guys. I love you both, and I'm so honored to have y'all to bring you in my life.
Yeah, and it's been a huge blessing for us. We consider you guys dear friends of the Project Truth Ministry team. And I'm glad that Father did a miracle and tied your hands up, Jeff, and forced you to listen to our videos. By the way,
Yeah.
I've been curious to ask, what chapter was it that you started off with when you heard us speaking?
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Okay.
Chapter
Good
3.
one.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
one.
was in chapter 3, and I was painting this. It was about a 25-foot ceiling, and I had my extension ladder leaned all the way up. I mean, as far as I could go inside this guy's house, and I was stretching way out, trying to paint this little spot that I couldn't get my ladder to because he had windows, and it would crush through the windows. And I'm straining everything I had, and my podcast stopped, and it went on to this weird Project Truth Ministry thing, talking about cocaine, or I don't know, some kind of stuff, and I didn't know what was going on. And I just fell in love with you both, and I'm like, I've got to get in touch with you guys. I felt a fire burning by the Holy
Amen.
Spirit on the inside,
Yeah.
and I said, I've got to help get this word out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we think that this was truly a God thing that He brought us all together. There's no doubt about that. We know that to be true. So you guys are a great blessing to us, and actually, Brian, it's kind of fun to have you on with me on the Way Remnant, right? What the heck?
Yeah, this was fun. It was a little tag team, like back and forth. I really enjoyed this. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
I
it.
give you all the hard questions.
Yeah. We gotta slip some lines in Janice's slides next time.
We'll do it. I may just make a watermark that just randomly appears with a lion.
There we
Yeah,
go.
did we get the
that'd be
numbers
great.
on those lions? What's the poll on that?
The poll. Well, I had I didn't have the answers correctly because I didn't know how many he was going to do.
Yeah.
But
We definitely passed 7.
The poll was 1, 5, and 7. We went
Yeah.
to, I think we went to 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So the answer would have been 4, infinity.
For
There we go.
infinity, right?
It never stops.
Well,
Oh my
this was
goodness.
fun. This was
Oh,
fun.
I love you guys both. Thank you so much for coming
love
on
you
tonight.
Yes,
Look,
thank you.
hey, the Cochin New Testament manuscripts. So in my opinion, and I'm sure your guys are going to say this, look, that I think these have the markers to being so far to date
Mhm.
being the best. It's not a compilation, but the best collection
Yes.
that points back to this being first century. And guys, look, if you go through and you listen to what Janice and Brian talk about in their videos, guys, to me, this is what I think Thomas, could be Andrew. Right? I think this is what Thomas carried with him
Right.
from his journey from probably Antioch all the way over into India.
I agree.
And then they survived as copies of copies of copies. And it just blows my mind because that's the only way that you would see these first century manuscripts getting out to India. That
Right.
guys, look, that's not a plane ride. They didn't have planes back then. That was
Right.
Yeah.
that was over a day's journey. I'm just kidding, but I mean, that's a massive undertaking to get from
Yes.
there to there.
That
And
was.
I'm just so fascinated that y'all preserved this and
Mhm.
has chosen this time to bring these things out.
Yes.
For such
And
a time as this.
to clarify some of the doctrinal issues that we have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's the Greek is really they've left the door open for so many things. Like some of these verses, the way that they're translated, the way the Greek works, it like opens the door for you to translate this way, that way, or this way. And
Yeah.
then you're open to all these man-made doctrines and beliefs, and you can just kind of make it up how you want because it's so ambiguous. But
Mhm.
then you get to what we have, and it's like it just completely shuts the door on all those doctrinal beliefs. It's just
That's
it
right.
says what it says. It's very clear, no wiggle room. And that's why I think this thing is so amazing. We're fixing the text. We're solving issues. We're making things link up to the Old Testament like the Greek doesn't.
Right.
It's just amazing. I love this manuscript. I'm truly
That's
blessed to be able to
awesome.
look at it.
So Amanda says, I went to Cochin and to the places where Thomas was supposedly at. Pretty cool. The Cochin Christians were Torah observant until the
Amen.
Portuguese Catholics came about 1600 years later. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Amazing.
I do believe Thomas lost his life in India also.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Guys, listen, do you guys have any other final words for our folks tonight? I do want to tell them, look, if you haven't gone over to Janice's YouTube channel, youtube.com at Janice F. Baca _translator. The F stands for fabulous. And then we go to over here to at Project Truth Ministries. Go subscribe to both YouTube channels, guys. You will not be disappointed. So amazing stuff. Do you guys have any final things you want to talk about?
Yeah, on my channel, I'm going to start teaching biblical Hebrew through the scriptures. I'm releasing a video on Friday where I am going to read Psalm 91. It's my favorite. What can I say?
Oh,
Psalm
amen.
91 in Hebrew, teach you the grammar of the Hebrew, what it's saying in the Hebrew, so that people who love the Psalm 91 can learn it, memorize it, and also translate it as well. I'm going to do that with a number of verses as well, randomly throughout the time. And so, guys, one of the things I think that Brian and I will be announcing officially on this Sunday is that I will be leaving Lamb Network. Not because I do adore them, I love them. It's because we've got this big project that's starting that we're going to be announcing all this stuff. I've got to dedicate myself to finishing and completing Matthew. And that's the reason why, but I will continue to publish videos on my personal channel about teaching Hebrew through the Tanakh. And so this is the reason why I'm getting thin, guys. That's where I'm at.
Yep.
I'm thin. I've got so much work to do and so little time to do it. And that's the reason why I'm having to do that. But I still love those, our dear friends there at the Lamb Network. But that's our next steps. Got to get Matthew completed, got to get it out, and got to get it out fast.
Yeah. More
Wow.
and more historical bombshell things are coming. Big things are coming from Project Truth Ministries. You're not going to be disappointed. Stay with us,
Absolutely.
subscribe, and spread the word. We are going to do some amazing discovery series that we're doing right now in Matthew. We say we're going to do bombshells. We're switching to verse by verse in chapter 5. There's just so much there. Look for that video to come out. I'm telling you, I think I counted, Janice, what was it, 18 or 19 major bombshells in this
I've lost
Matthew
count,
5?
Brian. I don't
Yeah,
remember,
so-
but there was
so
quite a few.
It's going to be big time. You're going to
awesome.
love it. Like what
Absolutely.
you saw. We saw some tonight. We saw, 4 from tonight from
Yes.
chapter 5. They were really
Amazing.
big ones.
And
So
they were
we're gonna see
big.
some more.
I as soon as I love on you guys and tell you whatever, I'm going back and watching this, especially those parts again. I'm just gonna be wow.
Yeah.
I really wanted to comment a lot more than I did earlier. So I'm trying to be
Yeah,
better.
well, we always
have to be
appreciate your
controlled.
comments.
Hey,
I
listen.
certainly advocate for people out there. Find these places in your Bible, whatever Bible you're using, it's fine. Make a little footnote and say the Cochin does not contain this, or the Cochin says this. You just add a little footnote so that you understand what manuscripts are out there, what says what, and
That's right.
keep it moving. Find these major bombshells in our videos and then
Right.
put them in your text.
And if Yeshua tarries 1,000 years from now, someone digs up that Bible, and
That's
they're gonna be
right.
like, wow, that little marginal note may make it into a new
That's
copy.
right.
There we go.
And then you're passing it down to your children, and then it goes to your grandchildren. That's huge. I love that.
Amen. That's good. That's good. Hey, I want to throw this out there just because my darling wife is right here. Don't miss Miranda's teaching on
Yes.
Janice's channel. You guys just did a teaching with
Sunday.
There was a
night?
Sunday, this last Sunday.
Yes,
Miranda, oh man, she just brought some guys. Miranda brings some stuff that just the Holy Spirit's all over her. So you guys need to watch that last video that we did together. And I love having Miranda on because
Whoop, whoop.
she really comes with some real stuff.
It
Gotta
was
love
so
her.
much fun.
Amen.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you, Karen.
Yeah, so this has been so good. All right, guys. Well, hey, look, we're normally we pull everybody off and all this stuff. I'm going to close out the program. You guys don't go anywhere.
Okay.
We love you guys. Thank you, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to all the channels.
That's
My
right.
goodness, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places I think tonight that we're streaming to. So super excited to have everybody. Drop some comments after the show's over, guys. Drop some comments. Share these videos out to every platform that you can think of and get this information out. This needs to get out. This needs
That's
to
right.
get out. I don't know if I said that before, but this needs to get out. So, amen. I just want to throw that out there.
Amen.
And also, if you're watching from a phone, I know you can do emojis. You could throw some hearts and some lions in
There you
there.
go.
There we
Just,
go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
blow up the comment section.
That's
we need
right.
to get some lions in the.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll
All
see
right,
if I
that's
can get a lion one for members just for when Brian's on. All right, guys.
That's right.
All right, guys. We love you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. We will see you on the next time. Shalom,
Bye,
shalom.
everybody.
Shalom. Bye, guys. Mwah.